I can't imagine what bored feels like right now.
Can't either.
Hi, Ken.
Hi, Jen, I got your email and you're right. It's for me, that the grant.
That's what I figured.
Yeah, you can delete it.
Okay.
Julie, I didn't get that communication from MDE today. I went back and looked.
You didn't?
I don't know why. I always do.
Well, good job. I copied you on that email.
Thank you. I didn't realize till afterwards. I'm like, oh, it's probably in my inbox. And then I was like, oh, or not.
Right.
Hi, Candy.
Hi there, Ken. How are you?
I am well.
Good.
Thank you.
And the families, I hope everybody's families are okay too?
Yes.
Good.
Yep. I'm glad we have Skyping and Hangouts and Marco Polo and Zoom and all that good stuff.
Good. Good.
All right, I'm going to share the screen over the agenda now.
Okay.
Hi, Dave. Hi, Stephen.
Hey guys, how are you?
Hi, Jen Melton. Sorry.
Jen Pottinger.
I saw Dave, but I don't see Stephen.
He's at the bottom.
There he is. I see him now, but he just got up.
All right, so you guys should be seeing the agenda now.
Yep, I see it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Roy.
Oh, there's Dylan. Hi, Dylan. Oh, he's connecting to audio.
Oh, I wish I can't see all of the I have to scroll.
Yeah, you have to scroll to see him.
Is
Hi,
there a
Stephen.
grid video view that you should be able to see everybody?
But
Well,
then you
this-
can't see the agenda.
Yeah, usually I can, but normally right now I can't because of the agenda.
Oh, Dave, you found your background.
This is where I am, girl.
Yeah.
What was your first clue?
A minute ago we saw your kitchen, but that's all right.
That was my bedroom.
Oh,
I'm in
sorry.
my makeshift office now from home, so good stuff.
Hey, you're on the beach too, Dave.
Joan is also on the beach. Hi, Joan.
Hi, Candy. Hi, Ken.
Hi, Joan.
Hi,
Joan.
Jen and Jen and Julie.
Hi,
and
Joan.
Jen and Jen and Jen.
Dylan's still trying to connect to audio. I wonder if there's something I can do on my end.
Oh.
I can't see.
He's connected.
I see more people.
I was able to get a different view if anybody cares. Up at the top, the view options where you can have the screen share, and then on the right side of the screen, I can see all the tiles of your faces.
I can only see so many.
Right.
Right.
You do. There is some scrolling in there. I think. What am I looking at? 6.
There's Diane. Hi, Diane.
If you have the little grid view to the side, you'll notice on the bottom of that panel, there's
Yeah.
a few teeth in the corner. If
Yeah.
you drag that down, you can actually make the grid bigger. And then you can see more people.
Oh, yeah. I'm gonna
Oh
try
yeah.
that.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
Wait.
Thank
what?
you. Doing
Oh,
it.
yeah. I just did that.
Good tip.
How did you do it?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can see 10 now.
How
I can
did you do
see
that?
10. I can only see 6.
So if
Bottom
you're
right
looking at
But
the
I'm on a
grid view,
small
Put this
And
laptop.
way and
it's
pull it
the
down.
bottom right of that grid. You'll see 3 little white teeth in the corner. That's actually a handle to pull it down.
It's cool. Yeah.
Nope.
I have 12.
Oh, there we
If you
go.
take
Now I
it
got
way
you.
up to the top.
I don't have any teeth, so.
Hey, we got Dylan on. Hey, buddy.
Uh-oh.
Are you in
Yeah,
grid?
Jen,
Pottinger, that's
P,
gonna be
I
a
don't see the
problem.
teeth either.
It's all right. I'll just struggle through it. I'll scroll.
It's
and
not
watch it.
teeth. It's like a
Oh, there's Steven.
It's like a
Hi,
little white
Steven.
triangle.
yeah.
Hello.
It's
Oh,
crazy.
Sarah's on the beach too.
I'm on the beach, people.
Uh-oh, I
Yeah.
don't see Sarah. Okay, I gotta scroll back.
Don't tell Joan.
There
Better work
she
here.
is. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Joan.
Sarah and I are actually back to back on the same beach. I don't know if that's a little known
No, your
fact.
beach is moving.
Yeah. So happy to see you all.
Yeah,
I think we have the entire board now.
All right.
Stole
So for,
Alexander's
Yay,
computer
that
here.
is so wonderful.
yeah, so for anybody that can't see everybody right now, in the little box on the right, you got to switch it to the grid, which is the setting at the top. So it's
View
the,
options.
Mhm. So at the top of that box, you'll see you'll see a little hide, a slightly bigger rectangle that says show active speaker,
I
two
did it.
rectangles, and then a grid.
You got your teeth
then-
back, Jen?
And then once you're on the grid, you can see everybody. And then once you have the grid, if you go to the bottom right of the grid, there's a little white triangle.
Mine's in the bottom left.
Yeah, there's one on the right and one on the left. If you
Oh,
take
I
those
didn't see that. on
symbols
the left.
and drag those down, you can actually see everybody.
Cool.
Okay.
Oh, there's
here comes
Doreen.
Doreen. Hi, Diane Wejack. Hi, Doreen.
Hi, Doreen.
Doreen's audio isn't on yet.
And it still says
Here
connecting.
she comes.
I can hear.
Yay, wonderful.
Hi, guys.
Oh, man.
Hi.
All right, so how are we doing on time? So we're just a little bit over time.
I would say, can we confirm that there's participants and they're able to hear on the outside, the individuals that are listening in?
Yeah, they will be able to. The
I
only
s-
thing is Candy right now, her mic is muted.
Right.
Yeah.
She's practicing proper
That's right.
Zoom etiquette.
That's right.
If you are not speaking, should be
Please be
muted.
muted. Right.
Mhm.
The Von
We-
Allmans are here and they can hear
Yeah.
us. They just chatted.
Perfect.
We have 12 attendees that are listening.
Yay.
That's great.
Jen Malero says they're good.
All right.
Oh. I went
Well,
to
Joan?
Speaker view. Uh, Sorry, I'm checking out my settings now. I lost my grid because I had to change my volume. All right. So this is our first meeting with a full 7-member board in a while. So we want to say welcome to Dylan. And thank you to Jen. So Jen swore Dylan in a few days ago in person so that he'd be ready for the meeting. And also thank you to Sarah, who has been sworn in again as part of her new term, right, Sarah?
Correct. Jen swore at me.
So thank you. All right. So we're going to follow the agenda as posted. We've acknowledged our new member and our swear-in. So now we're to approval of the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
But we do have to take off. Wait, I'm sorry. I was looking at the digital packet earlier. Remove. Second
Oh.
that motion.
Okay. So Diane made a motion, David seconded. We should take a voice vote to approve our agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Jen, can you do that roll call
Yep,
for us?
absolutely. Joan Earhart,
Yes.
Diane Wejack,
Yes.
Sarah Barton,
Yes.
Dave Cruikshank,
Yes.
Stephen Jenkins,
Yes.
Doreen DeBenedictis,
Yes.
Dylan Adams.
Great, thank you. So next up, we have our consent agenda. Are we prepared? Is someone prepared to make a motion to approve our consent agenda?
Yeah, I'll make that motion. That
So
we approve
that's
the
Dave. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
So that's Doreen seconding again. Jen, can you help us with a voice vote for approval?
I sure can. Joan Earhart,
Yes.
Diane Wejack,
We can't
Diane,
hear you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sarah Barton,
Yes.
Dave Cruikshank,
Yes.
Stephen Jenkins,
Yes.
Doreen DeBenedictis,
Yes.
and Dylan Adams. I can't hear Dylan. Is he responding?
I see his, it sounds like,
Muted?
Maybe he needs to turn the volume up on his computer or his headphones.
It looks like his audio is not connected.
Or Dylan, if you can hear us in the bottom left-hand corner, you have to change you have to change the sound to external microphone when you have the headphones plugged in.
You can see your mouth moving.
Yeah. So like under where it says mute, let me unmute, but under where it says mute, you would use external headphones.
Oh,
He called in on his phone.
he is on his phone. I don't know how to fix that problem.
He might be able to chat in the affirmative there. We can
Either
just
that
use
or, either that or do a thumbs up or thumbs
Oh.
down.
Hey, Dylan.
Yeah.
try
I just heard I was unmuted.
There we go.
There you
We got him.
Yeah, I added
Yeah.
him on my side.
Okay.
Okay.
I was
Thanks,
just
Dylan.
gonna
Yeah.
say wave if you want to give $1,000 to us.
All right.
Sure.
So that's approval of our consent agenda. Next up, we have public comment on our agenda items. Do we have any public comment?
Apparently
Everybody,
not.
everybody that is attending via Zoom. So if you go into the chat, via the bubble at the top, you can actually chat and say if you have any thing to say.
Yeah, I watched it. There's no activity, so I would assume there's no public comment.
Okay. So let's just make a plan. If any comment comes in between now and our extended public comment, we'll acknowledge that comment at that time. All right?
Sounds good.
Okay, so next up we have approval of the minutes. Do we need any discussion of last month's minutes? Any corrections?
No, I would make a motion to approve those minutes.
Was that Sarah?
Second, no.
Yes.
Steven, you're gonna accept. Second that.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Okay, voice vote, please, Jen?
Joan Earhart,
Yes.
Diane Wejack,
Yes.
Sarah Barton,
Yes.
Dave Cruikshank,
Yes.
Stephen Jenkins,
Yes.
Doreen DeBenedictis,
Yes.
and Dylan Adams.
Yes.
Great, so we have approval of the February minutes and they're ready for posting then. So next up we have old business, first with a pre-Labor Day start.
Yep, I'll talk about that. So on March 16th, a couple days after the bottom fell out of our world, we received the approval for our pre-Labor Day start. And that waiver is good for 3 years. We can start before Labor Day. I put the waiver application confirmation in the board packet. First day of school will be August 31st for students in grades 1st through 8th, and September 1st for young 5 in kindergarten. And if you have any questions about the waiver, please ask. And you will see later on in the meeting that we will be approving the 2021 calendar that reflects those dates. And I want to get those dates, that calendar out to our families as soon as possible.
Thanks for submitting the waiver, Julie. I'm glad that's
You're welcome.
in. Okay,
And
so
no
go ahead.
action needs to be taken on this, correct?
Correct.
Because MDE has already approved it. The ironic thing is now had I waited till after this pandemic started, everyone's waived now. So you don't even have to apply for it. But
That's okay. We've got
Yeah.
it on record.
Yep.
All right, so next up we have the director evaluation. So at our last meeting, which was in February, we discussed the evaluation process. And I believe the plan was when we came back, Julie was going to talk about the evaluation component, the performance portion of the evaluation based on looking at how teachers and students are doing. So that was going to be 40% of the evaluation. So we had I've had a little bit of discussion with Julie about this because of the change in our school plans right now. There's going to be no formal evaluation of the teachers, if I understand, and Julie, correct me if I'm wrong, but also there's going to be no standardized testing of students. So we need to think a little bit about how we're going to handle that in terms of the director's evaluation. Julie, do you want to talk about the teachers side of that, or add to any of that?
Well, the only thing I have to say about teachers is that all teacher evaluations are waived for this year. As you know, 40% of the evaluations were going to be based on standardized test data. And because we have no data and the school year was truncated, there are no teacher evaluations this year.
Julie, I understand that we can't include student achievement in this, but I guess I don't understand why we wouldn't still do some form of teacher evaluations, especially like with us going into this whole mode of online learning and remote learning, and to at least acknowledge teachers that are doing a great job with this. If we've had issues, I don't know, it just seems like we still have a whole year of student teaching, and I would hate to not identify strengths and weaknesses of teachers on our staff.
Well, can we have a conversation about that out of this board meeting conversation, please?
So
I hear what you're saying, but I don't want to say yes or no in a board meeting when I haven't had time to even think about it. You know what I mean?
Okay. So can we talk about? So can we acknowledge we're not going to make decisions at this board meeting without giving you the chance to think about it some more? But it's also not something I think that we can address in a closed session. And I'm not sure what all parameters you typically base your teacher evaluations on. I'm sure that you've shared a lot of detail with us in the past, and I just don't remember it. But I guess I would like to hear a little bit more, or give other board members some opportunity to chime in a little bit along those lines and get a feel for if there's some consensus at the board level around this or not.
I mean, I'm in Diane's court, where I think that even as just a manager at a company, an employee should have some sort of an annual evaluation to know whether they're on the right path, because some of them may have a career path where they're trying to get to the next step as quick as they can. And there's got to be that feedback there. And then on the other side of the coin, there's, employees that may have some issues that we've been working through however long, and those need to be addressed as well for progress and improvement. I mean, I wouldn't expect there to be a full evaluation like it is in years past or anything, but even if it's a 15-minute conversation over a cup of coffee in the offices, to have that verbal discussion of things are going okay, you're doing what's expected, here's what you can improve on, and those kinds of things. So something maybe at a half a review or something along those lines, but I think we owe it to the teachers to give them some sort of feedback as well.
Well, the way that teacher evaluations work is if you have been highly effective for 3 years, you get put on an every other year formal evaluation. And then we might have a narrative, a meeting where we would just give a narrative to teachers on the other year. So we could absolutely do that. But as far as going through the whole teacher evaluation with all the rubrics, that would be very difficult to do. And the effectiveness ratings are not available in MDE. So, teacher evaluations, you have the same effectiveness ratings as administrator evaluations. Those won't even be available this year. So we could absolutely do a narrative type performance review with the teachers. I'd prefer to call it that, like a performance review.
And that's what I
It's
would
a bit of a
say is-
terminology thing then along the way, really, right? It's just,
Right.
we think of them as evaluations, and you're talking about a narrative. The idea is to give some kind of feedback as their leader, whoever their leader is, of how are they doing, how are they progressing, and what are the things that they should do more of, and what are the things they should do less of or try. I think that's the point.
I would
100%.
add too that since we're in new territory with the online distance learning and the potential of it occurring again down the road, at some point in time, that we at least give the teachers individual feedback on what they're doing well and what's not working well and how to make improvements, because I don't think this is going to be the last time we do this.
I fear that you are correct.
Well, and even now you've given out some surveys for, families to give, we've
Yeah.
received.
Yeah.
And I think that'll give some good feedback too, because as you know, there's some teachers who are they're pivoting well, and there's other teachers probably who are struggling more with it along the way, and you'll have some feedback for that too.
Sure.
Yeah, and one of the
Opportunity.
things, yeah, to add to that, I think like Steve said, it's really a terminology, and I think a narrative is a good piece to share with them. And knowing that, we're likely not going to ever go back to what 2019 was. I know that we hear this a lot, at least we do in higher education, that how we do business is going to be very different going forward. So how can we use that narrative or that information to then, and maybe if it's possible, Julie, to have kind of a two-way conversation with them of how did it go, what could we do better, what worked, what didn't work. And then individually, because we know as teachers and as individuals, things work well for some that don't work well for others, and figuring out going forward, how do we utilize that? How do we give them feedback? I mean, we're in an unprecedented time, but I also think it's important to capture the work that teachers did for the 3 semesters prior to the craziness.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
With
Something
regards
that-
to this being,
No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, maybe this is slightly off topic, so we can skip it for now, but with regards to kind of the concept that, hey, this may not go away, this might be more of a new normal, is there industry-wide, kind of best practices, knowledge, I mean, this isn't something that this school is facing alone, so it just seems like we're almost kind of saying, hey, there's more than anything, there's going to be teachers out there that are struggling with what this has kind of doing, and if we are going to be in this position longer, maybe it's not a review as much as kind of better equipping our teachers with the knowledge and the skills they need to operate in this environment.
And just so the board knows, today, every week, we meet with teachers either in middle school, it's in subject areas, and in elementary, it's in grade level teams. We meet with them for an hour a week on a Zoom, so that we are, and I'm just going to use this phrase, taking the pulse of how they're doing. How are they doing with the Zoom calls? How are they doing with the Google Classroom? How many kids are you seeing? Which kids haven't you been able to reach? And then we are reaching out to those kids. So it's a continual dialogue that we're having with the teachers weekly. So we're touching base with every teaching staff member per week. Just for your information.
Yeah, that's good to know. I also wanted to mention that I think it would be helpful for me to hear at the board level what the teachers are finding, most useful and most successful, and to have some idea of how to make the best choices in terms of infrastructure, equipment, or software platforms to support the online learning. And, just along the lines of the way we do business is going to be changing. How do we support that going forward? But in terms of Julie's evaluation, that 40% was based on having more of a quantitative, so you take these qualitative skill sets and you assign values, and then you have some quantitative value that you base that 40% on. So my question then for the board and for Julie is, how do we want to somehow acknowledge the effort and the successes and the challenges that have gone into the transition and also the early part of the school year in some way that can be reflected in the director's evaluation tool.
I think it's fair, Joan, just to take a look at that. I know we can't add in like teacher assessment and things, and that's perfectly fine, or testing assessment. But if we can look at how we usually go through the parameters and identify, and then that could be a 75% weight, right? If we figure that 3/4 of the school year was a normal type of school year, and then the last semester is really highly abnormal, then be able to weight that and take a look at it. I don't think it's going to be a perfect science. I don't know if it ever was a perfect science. And I think we just have to do the best that we can with it, knowing that 75% of the year was what you would consider normal, if there's ever such a thing. And then the last quarter is highly abnormal, but understanding that it's not, we're not the only ones that are in this situation. And just to publicly say as a parent, and I know we talked about this in the curriculum meeting a little bit, but as a parent, I think the school is doing a phenomenal job. I work with other individuals where their children attend different public school districts, and it's nowhere near the caliber that Holly Academy is pushing out. So Jen, Julie, Jen, and Ken, thank you so much for all the work you're doing for our kids.
Thank you.
What do you think, Julie? Do you think there's some way to, I mean, even if it's not a great fit, but somehow quantitate that performance piece? Using flexible thinking.
Well, there has to be a way to do it.
So let me ask a question just to make sure that I'm on the same level. Teacher evaluations were allowed to be amended for this year, but the directors, there's been no change in requirements for filling out those evaluations?
No, they've been waived too.
Okay. We're just trying to figure out how do we take it and make it malleable into something that we can present as far as an evaluation.
Yes.
Gotcha.
I think that in Joan, I could be wrong, but I think the last time you and I spoke about it, we just said that my self-evaluation would be how I have responded to the rubrics. And then we would weight them differently based on that there is no 1920 student data. And it would be based kind of like a soft evaluation based on those rubrics. And we talked about that.
Joan, do you think this is a good time that the board needs to come up with some type of subcommittee to deal with this beast of an evaluation? And knowing that down the road at some point, Julie may want her sanity of retirement. I'm wondering if that maybe there's a subcommittee that can be put together, and I'm happy to be on that with whomever, and figure out, first of all, what is really our goal with this year of a director evaluation for her? What are we doing with that? You know, if the state has waived it, then we as a board are doing what with it? And then we need to figure out how much time and effort we need to put into it, and then figure out what are those next steps past that as well, right? Like looking at succession planning and so on in the future kind of thing. So I'm wondering if there's a way that we can even just, it doesn't have to be a standing, we don't have to have it forever, but if there's a way that we can put a couple of us together and put our heads together and bring it back to the board for approval.
I'm happy to do that. Will that work for you, Julie? Like have an ad hoc meeting or two?
Sure.
Okay. Does that work for others on the board?
I can do it. I'll volunteer.
So Dave, Sarah, I'm happy to join also, but I want to hear if that's it. Does that sound acceptable to other board members?
I think it's fine.
Acceptable. Yeah.
But I don't think the evaluation, whatever it turns out to be, should be through the subcommittee. I think it should be the full board though, correct?
Correct. Yes. I
Yeah, it would
agree.
just be parameters
Mhm.
instead of.
Great. Thank you.
Does that mean you want to help us with that, Diane?
Then it would be quorum.
Right, you have too many
We'll kick
people.
Joan out.
I'm happy
We'll
to
kick
drop
Joan out.
off if you. Happy to make room for someone else.
Joan, you and I can draw straws. I'm happy to participate.
Okay. All righty. So we'll leave that for now. We'll call that a plan. All right, for new business. So we've got some information, but also several approval items under new business. First, we have correspondence, the CMU school support visit summary report. Did everybody have a chance to look at that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, so next up we have the Big Ideas Math update.
Real quick, sorry, could you go back on that last topic? Maybe it was just my
Sure.
copy. This is the SSV thing?
SSV, yep.
I think my copy, hard copy, only included every other page. Was it electronically delivered too, and I just missed that piece?
Yes, it was electronically.
Jen, we can't hear you very well. It should have been received electronically as well. I think you were
Okay,
on the email.
I don't know if he would have
I
been on the
probably
board
was.
yet.
We
Wasn't if
sent
you
Dylan
checked
an
your email.
electronic copy. Yep.
Okay, I'll look through that again.
Thank you. All right, so for the Big Ideas Math update, is that you, Jen Pottiger?
It is. I'm just glad I remembered to unmute myself. I am thrilled to death with the transition, not with this pandemic, not with having to figure out how we do everything online in, 48 hours, but Big Ideas has certainly eased that transition for our 4th through 8th graders. They were familiar with the online components in most, if not all cases and grade levels prior to our closure. So it has so streamlined for our students and teachers. It was just an ease of transition into the online component. So conversely, it's a struggle at the K3 level with the Pearson because it's very cumbersome. And it's not as user-friendly, especially for our littler guys. So I am, as Julie mentioned earlier, we meet with those teams every week. And, Seith, Travis, Natalie, and Tracy they are just, they can continue their traditional curriculum that we are still in the same curriculum that we would be in if the kids were in school, not just at the same volume because of the out of school and the distance learning plan. But it has been a very, very smooth transition, and I really look forward to making that a K-8 transition next year fully. Does anyone have questions about Big Ideas?
What kind of feedback are we getting at from parents, if any?
It's so much better.
Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Initially there was a little bit of a hiccup that we ran into posting the assignments through Google Classroom. It's cleaner for kids, which they're used to anyways, just logging directly into Big Ideas, and their assignments are assigned directly on Big Ideas site. So that took just a minute to smooth out, and then I think it's been, if you're a parent, Dave or Sarah, I'm looking at the two of you, I think, and Jen Milton, I was a parent in here as well. I think it's been much cleaner and smoother. There was just a momentary hiccup there, and then we figured out that it worked better to have kids directly into the website.
Right on. Good stuff. Any reservations from doing the trial or the pilot?
None.
Nothing at all?
None.
Wow, that's awesome.
Are the students in math for a longer period of time than they were before?
Well, like then in brick and mortar setting, like before March?
Or? Well, yes, please.
Currently, are they in math class more than they were before? No.
Okay.
And I'll go through all of that when I go over our distance learning plan, which I think is next. So I'll show you exactly, I'll give you our schedule of how it was in my packet that I included, how often kids, so in grades 3 through 8, kids have 2 math classes per week, whereas in the other subject areas, they just have 1.
But when we were in brick and mortar, why do I think that we were adding more time?
We did, yes,
this?
sorry. I thought you meant now, are they having more
No,
math time? And I'm like, no.
No, yeah.
So in brick and mortar, in middle school, yes, they had math class and then they had math core every other day that alternates with Spanish. And that math core is in addition to, not necessarily, it's another math class. So they would have 7 or 8 math classes per week, just depending on if it's A or B week. Does that
And
make
for
sense?
student achievement, you're seeing improvements, or we don't know because we didn't.
I don't
do
know. We don't NWEA test in, we only do K-3 reading because of the read by 3rd grade legislation. We do not do the mid-year testing just because it's optional, and quite honestly, it's another month of lost, of time that we are focusing on testing, and that time is better spent, in my opinion, teaching kids. So I have feedback from teachers, I have feedback, from families and kids, but I don't have any black and white data this year like M-STEP scores, so.
Cool.
Then I have a pretty dumb question. We don't have to get into it today, but is there a good place I could get like a summary of what Big Ideas is, like how it works and what's different about it versus maybe what you guys were doing before?
Yeah, I can email you that.
Awesome.
If you give me a day or two to get that together, and I'll send it out to you.
Yeah, no rush at all.
Sure. Dave lost his audio. Did you get it back, Dave?
Dave?
Negative.
Back, I found it. Sorry.
I'm gonna move.
Sorry, I'm just making a note.
Yeah, I think you have the presentation that you gave to us, right, Jen?
I do, and that's what I'm going
Firstly.
to share with you next.
Perfect. Okay.
I
was thinking of the Big Ideas presentation for Dylan, for his background.
Yeah. I'll that's what I'll send to him. I just need a minute to
Yeah.
find
Okay.
it. I need Roy to allow me to share my screen, or Julie, or somebody.
I believe on your side that you're allowed to do it. You can just steal it from me.
Oh, it says this will, I see. I didn't read the whole thing. Sorry.
That's a common problem in our house too. I will say one of the benefits of distance learning is my children are learning to read directions, full directions.
Right. So, okay, I just have to move our faces out of the way. So this is a distance learning plan that I presented to the subcommittee of the board back, it was April 7th. I just changed the date today, so your packet probably has the same date. So I'm just gonna talk you as quickly as I can through the slides. So this is the schedule that we came up with. When we first started talking, when we first closed, trying to figure out exactly how we would make this provide ease of use for parents and for kids. So we knew that at those very initial weeks that students or teachers were scheduling it, but they weren't required and they were overlapping with other grade levels. Well, as you all know, we have a lot of students with a lot of siblings in our school. So how could we make this clean across the board? So we allocated a set time for each grade level. In our little grades, our young fives in kindergarten, they have between 8 and 10:45 on Monday, first grade the same time, and second grade on Tuesday and Wednesday. Their primary instruction is done through packets that we receive through the ISD, and they are, in addition to the packet work that they're receiving all of them are being mailed to all of our young 5th through 2nd grade students. So they get them electronically and they have a hard packet. In addition to that,
what is ISD? What is
I'm
ISD?
sorry, the Genesee Intermediate School District.
Oh, okay.
So they provided those packets. We worked
That makes more sense now.
pretty heavily, we sit in Oakland County and we're part of Oakland Schools. GISD is very welcoming to Holly Academy, and we have a very good relationship with them. I participate in their curriculum directors meetings monthly. Tina Craven goes to the academic coach, the literacy coach meetings. So over time, we've just developed great relationships with them. All of our teachers who went through the leadership training was done through GISD. So Julie has had a great relationship with the ISD coming out of Flint and then extending that to Holly Academy as well. So during this 8 to 10:45 time, on other days outside at what worked as a scheduled time for their groups, they're doing reading groups in small groups of about 3 students so that our kids are getting new instruction additionally in reading. Because again, even though this year they have, I can't come up, they have waived the Read by 3rd grade reading bill. As you know, this was the first year that it was supposed to take effect. So we know, though, that our kids are home and reading instruction continues to be important, and those littles will be our 3rd graders next year. So they continue to do individual reading group or small reading groups with those kids. On Mondays in 3rd through 8th grade, it's ELA. Tuesdays, you can see at the bottom, is math. Wednesdays are science, social studies, Thursday, and Spanish on Friday. And then you see additional little spots. So 5th grade 2nd math class is on Thursday at 10. 6th grade is Friday at 11. So we've added, again, those 2nd math courses for students. So they are getting 2 math lessons per week in 3rd through 8th grade. Any questions with this slide?
I'm sorry, I don't understand. So kindergarten is only on Mondays from 8 to 11 or 10:45?
It may not be. That's when their whole group class can meet or their bigger groups can meet. They may have, like Jen Malero could have reading groups any time in this whole in the whole day, whatever works for those groups of students. Does that make sense? So that's in addition to their big group.
So the big group meets at that time, and then there's small group times throughout the week.
Right. And they meet for about 30 minutes in a whole group setting.
It's scattered across the week and across times for the other subjects and other teachers.
Got it.
Any other questions?
And do we think when we see like where it says like just picking the 7th science for math on the 3 to 3:45, obviously the 4th grade, how should I think about that? Or I guess, or no, I guess I misunderstood it. So I should be thinking about it at the start of the day, end of the day, they would meet and have their science lesson at the 4th graders would have 12 to 12:45 and then have a 2nd math lesson again in the afternoon.
So Tuesday is the 4th graders have math on, all the kids have math on Tuesday. Where they're slashed, those are their 2nd math class.
Secondary.
So you don't see you didn't double them up on Tuesdays. So if I'm a 4th grader, I have a Tuesday math class from 12 to 12:45, and then I have a Wednesday math class from 3 to 3:45. And all of the Zoom classes that are taught during these times are recorded and posted in Google Classroom. So if for some reason a family had technology issues or they couldn't get on at that moment, or one other million things could have happened, they are always able to go back and rewatch the lesson. We good?
Is the content that we're covering in each of these subjects the same content that would have been covered if we were at brick and mortar?
Yes, except that it's reduced, right? Because what I would teach 5 days a week is now taught in a 45-minute block with one assignment given for the week.
Okay, but they could go back and re-review it online if necessary.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, because we are trying to find that sweet spot for families, right? What's too much work and what's, you know, we have a lot of families of essential workers and medical people in the medical field. And we have to be cognizant of what our individual families are dealing with. So we're working, this was our initial push. And so just a little sneak peek, I just looked at the survey before. We already have about 200 responses, which is amazing. And we're pretty much, it was the highest percentage was right in the middle. Like, is it too hard? Is it too easy? My biggest percentage significantly was a 3 on a 1 to 5 scale. So, you know, that's telling me that we're finding that sweet spot and we're not stressing families unnecessarily or making it too easy for them.
And are you getting some feedback as a teacher, seeing that the students are embracing and understanding the concepts?
Yeah,
I mean, since we're not doing the standardized testing, are you getting some sort of feedback to recognize that it's working or it's not working at all?
So students are submitting their assignments through Google Classroom, which is utilized in grades 2 through 8. So even though that packet work is the primary instruction, I went in and moved all of the packets with Jose's help on Monday morning. We had a teacher come in and check them all off today, and then the K2 packets are being checked off by Mrs. Malero. So we are then, so that it's less people in the building, less people handling all of the packets. And so we will keep them, and then if there are questions that teachers have, I can provide them, you know, I can copy and send it to them or whatever.
Okay.
But they are providing feedback to their students. That's part of the executive order. They are providing feedback to their students through the work that they do in their reading groups or their Google Classrooms.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
It's good feedback. You know, I've got a little one, but I'll also say it does pile up because both my wife and I are probably 12 hours a day on phone calls. And I'll tell you, if anything, our little one's gotten used to how does she work independently, right? How does she work a schedule? How does she work it? And it's a tough old slog sometimes.
I can only imagine. So here is.
And Jen, if I can just say one thing, I think, again, just to the work that administration and the teachers, right? That these teachers are still teaching an incredible heavy workload, and they are dealing with issues like we are, Stephen and David and all of those that still have parents, right? Where we're still working at home, trying to be front and center to their students and, you know, make sure that their children are not driving them crazy or tearing the house apart or whatever that may be at the moment. So I think I really appreciate the Zoom. I think also the piece that we need to not forget is the social piece. And I will say that I've learned a lot about my daughter in this time. Like, she is a very big social bug, but her need to see her friends and to talk to people and to understand that life is still the same as it used to be. We just have to be in our home, I think is just as important as the academic curriculum that we're providing to them. And that's a big, big piece. So doing a great job.
Thank you.
Hey, Jen, can I add something to that last slide? I just, you know, I'm sure you saw the words reserved. I just wanted to let you know, as the board, that is reserved for special education and intervention. That is when we have reading groups, we can have that reserved for us to help the students. So I just wanted to let you know, it wasn't like time off or anything. It was reserved for special education and intervention. So we could have a time that we could book our students with.
We have taken, so special ed has jumped right in and continued their services, whether it's speech and language on one-on-one calls or, you know, OT or PT, and the teachers and the paras are involved in the classes and then working individually with kids. In terms of intervention, all of our tier 3 kids in reading are being worked with. And we have employed teachers whose primary function is maybe a specials teacher. So to work with our intervention teams, because specials you might not see on there because they're supplementary. So how do we employ them to help, you know, fill that need for all of our students? Thanks, John.
Mhm.
So teachers or all students are having at least one virtual class once per week, twice for math in grades 3-8, like I said. The rest of the week, teachers are sending video messages to families, checking in. This is really the heart of what we do, right? Because we need to make sure our kids are okay too. It's that social piece with our kids. It's the just checking to make sure that they're okay. Emails, phone calls, through Google Classroom, through Zooming. I had a teacher has a student who can't get into her math online, although the teacher logged in just fine. So they're Zooming probably as we speak to have her log in and show her where her hiccups are. So I will say that our staff takes my breath away. I've told them that repeatedly, because they took this and ran with this 100%. And they are working crazy hours and putting, they are all in. And many of them, just like you said, have little ones at home. I'm thankful I don't. It's, it would be it's challenging at the best of times to work from home. It's more challenging when you're all at home working, and that, but our staff has stepped up to the plate in, I just don't have enough compliments to say about the work that they're doing, other than I am so proud to be the academic leader in this, in terms of curriculum with them. I'm just extraordinarily proud of the work that they're doing. So when we first started, I must have received 400 million emails with all of the resources in the world that went online for free. And we all got them, and we were like, whoa. And so originally we just sent them to teachers, sent. And then we're like, wait, so that's too much, because it's an overload for parents. If I say to parents, we're using Freckle, ReadWorks, No Reading, Big Ideas, Khan Academy, BrainPop, Flipgrid, Sangari, all of the things, that's too much for families. So we spent, Tina Craven, Jen Burns, and Julie and I spent about 4 hours on the phone one Saturday of spring break trying to streamline what programs we really wanted to use, where the best bang for our buck was, and what kids and families were already familiar with. So, sorry, my pictures end up in front of my stuff, then I can't see what I'm doing. So this is just across the board what teachers are using. Not that they don't use a few other supplemental things, there might be video links that they send, but for the most part, this is what we are asking our teachers to stay true to. So, what have we done to date? Prior to the closure, forms were sent home regarding internet accessibility and devices. I probably need to update this, because as of the first date, 66 Chromebooks were prepared for distribution and distributed. So I would just like to take a moment to acknowledge the work that Roy McKee has done in preparing I don't even know the right words, taking them apart to put them back together so that they could be used at home.
Yeah, we're actually up to 96 now. I just did 30 today.
Thank you, Roy. So these are for families who don't have technology or don't have enough technology. So we began our online learning and or packets with students on March 17th. That was 2 school days after the initial closure. Our GISD packets for students without access were mailed out on April 2nd. This is old, so the packets for the week of April 13th will be mailed April 8th. So now we are mailing them because we found a little bit of a hiccup with our U.S. Postal Service. It's taking a little longer. So we are mailing them on the Monday for the week following. So that way parents are, for the most part, getting them in time. Our special ed staff, we talked about this, are supporting identified students in their Zoom classes and independently, same with intervention. In addition to intervention, working with our Tier 3 students, they are working with our essential workers, family students. If a family is struggling, we have sent out a form to all of our staff, like as they're communicating with families. And, you know, if it's a COVID issue in the house, or if there's other things going on that are causing the struggle, our intervention team is reaching out and working with those families as well. So admin created and submitted. So we were closed for the remainder of the year on Thursday of spring break. On Monday and Friday afternoon, we received the template for our continuity of learning plan. Monday, we were all there with our masks on and worked really hard to get that continuity of learning plan done. And it was submitted, and if I'm not mistaken, we were the first in CMU's portfolio to be approved. Our maintenance staff also deserves a lot of credit. They have cleaned out all of the lockers and desks, and Ken's department, and along with Ken, has made sure that all of the items were bagged, and they've been in the gym for a week, and they continue this week to be offered to pick up. We did it through social distancing. The gym is laid out so that alphabet is spread out and they are not next to each other. Like the A's and B's don't come on the same day. And then today a survey on distance learning was sent out to seek feedback on the learning taking place. And that is the end of my talking. Sorry, that was a lot of talking. I am going to.
More than enough. I gotta say, as a parent, it's and I've got kids in university and in high school. Certainly Holly and the staff have blown away everything I've seen. I've been able to benchmark with others and I've talked to.
Thank you. Do you have anybody have any questions?
I can't think of any questions to ask around it. I mean, just other than the feedback, like the parent survey will be a good, indicator or barometer of how well it's going. Will that be in a packet for the directors for next month, or when you guys get it or close it, are we going to get those emailed? Because it would be nice to see those.
Yeah, right now it's a Google form, so you can put it into a spreadsheet. I put it in the spreadsheet, but it's tricky to read, so I want to just truncate expand the comments section so that it's cleaner for you to read. I'll put that together, and that parents have until next week to get it into us, although a significant number have already done so, which makes me happy. But I can absolutely put that together for next month.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then Jen, my only question is more of a comment, honestly, of I really hope that, life is back to somewhat normal in the fall, but obviously thinking about what does fall look like, having a plan for that. And then whether we are, no matter what form we're in, then I'm sure it's already on your radar of, I don't want to say make up for this time, but we're obviously going to have a gap in learning than we traditionally would in a regular, brick and mortar classroom. So I'm sure those are things that are already on your mind of how do we, catch up all of the students.
Right. We know we're going to have to meet the students where they are when they come back to us. Some families are very fortunate and are able to sit and do the work with their students and provide them extra learning opportunities. And some families are really struggling. So we are reaching out to those families to hopefully help some of that, ease that gap. But, it would be silly for me to think that kids won't come with somewhat more of a gap than our normal summer slide.
Right.
So we know we have to meet them where they're at. I'll be honest, we are working really hard to stay ahead of it right now. It is on my mind about what does next year look like? How does that affect our intervention department? And, all of, as teachers, what do we need to do to prepare to, there's going to have to be some review at the beginning of the year for the prior year. So what does that look like, and how do we efficiently move through that to meet the needs of our kids?
Right. Well, and I also think, how do we capitalize, if we are back into a brick and mortar, how do we capitalize on the fact that we've been forced to do distance learning? How can that be supplemental, possibly in a homework assignment or in a catch-up kind of mode, or just in an extra added supplement to keep the students moving? So.
Yep.
this is maybe a tough question also. Does the board keep meeting throughout the summer?
Yes.
Yeah,
Sure,
okay.
Except for July. We typically have taken July off.
Okay. And then I mean, is there a point in time where, I mean, if come fall we're not back in, what point do we have to essentially start to talk about what does the fall look like if we can't get back together, if we're not returning to normal?
Academically speaking, are you referring to the academics, Dylan?
Yeah, I guess kind of, or just
Or
in
all
general.
of
I
the
mean,
things.
maybe that's maybe a huge question, I guess, if this is, when do we, what do we need to think about? And then I guess kind of maybe more of an academic question is it possible to give the students work over the summer to assist with some of that slide?
Don't do that to parents, Jen Potter. I am at this point right here.
You're getting
We
all
just
of the books. I think that's challenging for parents, especially on the backside of remote of teaching their children at home for the last 9 weeks. That's not to say that we haven't had some conversations about we have summer packets that students usually, parents can purchase. Tina and I have had a brief. Tina Craven is our academic coach, sorry. And she and I have had some preliminary conversations about how do we get those in kids' hands for the summer for some review to keep them moving. But as for what next fall looks like, we're a little bit at the mercy, like we all are, of when do we get to go back to somewhat of a normal life. What does that look like in schools? I don't know yet. We're preparing for lots of different scenarios. We're preparing for what if we're back, hopefully, geez, nothing would make me happier than if we were back in brick and mortar and doing what we do best in person. We also have to think about what if we're socially distancing back in the fall. There's so many different scenarios to look at. What if we're in this place again? We're having those conversations, but obviously we don't have any final decision at this point.
So
Have they moved?
This is the end of week 2 of your distance learning plan, like full implementation?
Yes. No.
3, I
Of
think.
this,
Three.
we're in week 3 of this
Okay.
distance learning plan, but on March
Week
17th.
We're in week 6 of
Yeah.
we've been teaching for the whole time, other than that spring break. Everybody got the week off. And yes, sorry, our packet numbers are different. Like the week numbers are different than the actual week. So I never remember, like, is it week 6? Are we in week 7? But this is week 6 of our instruction online. It's our 3rd official week because
Right,
we jumped right in.
Right. So I understand. I was just trying to get a sense of how, like how much of a feel you can have at this point for how your daily, weekly schedule is going, how it's going for parents and students and teachers, and I think it's.
Oh, you can get a good feel, trust me, because okay, so let me speak from a parent's perspective for a moment. There is no such thing as a typical week. You think you have a rhythm, and then like by Wednesday, it's out the door because so I work full-time at home, and either your work is going nuts, your kids have lost it, it's 70 and sunny outside, their packet's not done, they forgot they have a Zoom, it's just total chaos. And my kids are not like, they're not crazy kids, right? They're rambunctious, they're normal kids. But I think, being 6 weeks into it, we have a pretty good feel for what's going on. And I can only imagine, I think of these teachers that are teaching all day, right? Like to be able to get their kids to say, okay, today I need this all day kind of thing. So, I mean, everyone that's in it with littles that are trying to teach and work, we have a very good sense of the total chaos that it is all the time.
I agree with you, Sarah. We have had a lot of feedback from parents, mostly positive. I mean, I do see on our parent Facebook page, I've lost the Zoom login. There's some struggles, and we try to help them as rapidly or redirect them to where they need to be. Or Lisa Crawford does a great job of that as quickly as possible. but I think they have a pretty good sense of how this is going.
And the one thing that I will say I really truly appreciate that's a little bit different than the first 2 weeks that when we got into it is you have more room to breathe. Like, I know my daughter had issues with a Zoom on Monday and she's like, Mom, I'm like, it's okay. We just missed one. It doesn't mean that our world is turning upside down, like, calm down, we'll get through it, we'll figure it out. So there's not like this, if I don't do it, I'm going to be marked absent. And then I'm going to, it's a nice balance, I will say, between having interaction and having structured curriculum time, but also having sanity and realizing that the world changes in an hourly time right now, and you've got to be able to be flexible and adjust to it.
Thank you.
Thank you, John, for all you're doing.
You're welcome.
Do we have any idea of what the fall, if the state standardized testing, it's usually in October, right? Has that been discussed at all?
It's April and May. We should be testing. We should be in the throes of testing right now.
Well, no, I know that, but I'm talking about the fall testing, which usually shows the summer slide and then the growth of the student from the springtime.
Which is NWEA, yep.
Right, okay. So that's still slated for the fall. And so I'm just curious on how globally and statewide, because every kid is doing the same thing, that they're all going to be back. And so the kids that are moving from first grade to second grade might be at a 1.5 level when they're in second grade in that fall testing. So I don't know if we can even make a decision until we have that data of what did they actually gain or lose throughout the course of this school year.
Well, the NWEA test is a nationally normed test, so it will take kids where they're at, and it takes a 7-year-old in 4 weeks of school in, it will compare them to every other 7-year-old 4 weeks of school in. So I think we'll get some pretty solid data, and that I believe that we are starting testing, if I'm not mistaken, we start a little bit, the window will be the beginning of October. Like the first 3 weeks of October. We start a little bit before that because we are only required to test in reading and math, but we do ELA and science, and we can do that outside of their window.
Okay, right on.
So 2 things. So I'd like to hear how it's going at our next board meeting.
Okay.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Update for teachers and students, but also, have you thought about, and maybe you haven't, but if the NWA needs to be given remotely, what would that look like?
Well, that's a decision that will come to us from CMU. That's not a decision we make in-house. Central requires an assessment of us, and they will determine how that goes down. Candy is nodding yes. Thank you, Candy. So that's not a decision we can make.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
All right.
I guess
so
also one thing is think about the physical planning that's going to have to happen. Industry is going to be lucky to be ramped up by midway through July. And at that point, still going to have significant numbers of people working from home. And so even you roll ahead now, let's say 1 month from that, and now we could be going back to school. I think a lot of planning, because I know what the last 6 weeks have been of my life, of how do you work on the physical separation, the entryways, are you temperature testing kids, are you putting masks on them, are you separating them out? I think there's a lot of planning that will need to be happening as time goes on for the physical. Whenever the kids come back, it's going to be, at least for a period of time, you can guess the period of time, it's going to be a physically different environment that we're going to have to provide. And that has a lot of planning that kind of, to me, that's what needs to be pivoted to starting right about now, at least in the low level, because you're going to have to physically rearrange things and think about standardized work and think about all those kind of things. That's kind of the next phase of this, really, is the re-entry, because it's not going to look exactly the same, right?
Correct. So we've had sorry, Julie, Jenner can jump in. We've had some preliminary conversations about that, about what that looks like. So prior to the closing, we had gone through all of the upcoming events, and we had made some decisions about what events would take place and mostly what events wouldn't take place, and that parents would not be allowed in the building just because we were trying to minimize, you know, the number of people in the building. So we had done some of that preliminary work. Like we had decided at that point that probably spring concerts weren't going to be a good idea, to pack 500 people into the auditorium when there's a pandemic. So we've had some of those conversations, and we've recently, you know, that now that we're up and rocking and rolling with the distance learning, now we are starting to shift to what does that look like going forward? What does that look like space-wise for kids? You know, some of that guidance has to come from, you know, the governor's office, right? I'm sure she will let us know if, you know, if students are required to wear masks, or if we have to temperature check, or how do we limit exposure in our building. We've had some of those preliminary conversations, and that's where I envision, and Julie jump in, I envision that's where our next, you know, our next couple weeks will be turning to those things. But we're really, again, at the mercy of the governor as to when she decides, when the government decides we can reopen. You know, we have to wait for some of those indicators from the government. And once we have them, you know, but we are preparing on the backside of that as best as we can for all scenarios. Does that make sense, Stephen?
Yeah, it certainly makes sense. And certainly that direction will come from there, but every space is different. And so it's going to be your guys' individual detailed plan. I mean, you can guess at a good portion of what's going to come down. And a lot of that is you guys putting in your plans of how do you roll with that, you know, along the way. Yeah.
So Stephen, do you think it would be helpful to maybe not actively coordinate it, but communicate through the building committee with admin plans and you know, what's happening around planned reentry?
I don't think you can start any of that too soon. Like you say, there's lots of if-then statements or trees that you're gonna go through depending on what's turned on or not turned on of this. But I do know just, you know, getting a hold of some of this stuff will be difficult. But even, you know, day one, you're going to be bringing in the kids, and how do you want to bring them in differently? How do you want to train them differently? Because right now, it's, as we know, we kind of call it the disease factory coming to school, right? You know, it's, I mean, what are we going to do slightly different? And maybe it's that starting conversation. Again, I don't think it can happen too soon. It's much more complicated than many people think than just the governor kind of saying something. It's going to be all the details that the people on this call and otherwise are going to have to do.
Yeah.
I guess I would have to agree with Stephen on this, that, and it's not, I think your thoughts in your mind sometimes are easier to figure it out. But if you think about like hallway transitions, and you think about, can there be additional cleaning, you know, throughout? And I mean, we're not going to, and I keep saying this because this is what I hear from industry and outside, we're not going to go back to what it was when we left. It's just not going to be that kind of environment, especially for the fall. We're hoping to be able to get back into a physical environment in the fall, but it's likely to be with some very heavy safety and health precautions. So yeah, I guess I don't know what you guys need from us for that. I'm sure you're, like, by the nods, you're already thinking about that. But if there's things that we need to be doing or thinking or letting us know, then do tell.
Andy, is Central putting anything together for any of this at all yet, or?
Sadly, no. I think they're going to wait for the Michigan Department of Education and the state school board maybe to come up with some ideas. So no, so I don't have any answers for you on that either. When we do, we'll let you know. But this is a good discussion, and I think that your ideas are good ones. And I'll move them up the chain on your behalf if you would like, because I think they're good suggestions.
Well, if you follow industry, we're going to be temperature testing, giving out masks, social distancing, the common areas, we're moving things away. The bathrooms, we're cordoning off, you know, urinals, we're spacing them out. We're coming up with procedures for coming in and out. There's questions every day for people as they come in. And these are going to be in place for, we're looking at 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, and
that
I think
overlaps this.
one of the things I've thought about too is, you know, definitely how are we handling sick children? You know, a runny nose in the past or a slight cough or someone that looks ill would be passing through, but you know, what is that policy and what is that toleration of that? I think the thing that we have to also think about, that I would encourage us to think about, is we are a school of excellence. So I think whatever's going to be put out is going to be put out as a baseline, but we probably want to do a little bit more than what that baseline is. So even encouraging, you know, even to, I know we had this before, but like, do parents need to come in for pickup, or do we all do the pickup lane, right? Like,
Yes.
you got to use those pickup and drop off lanes.
Yeah. Sarah, I assume at Michigan, you don't have any guidelines established yet either, right?
We have some that are finally starting to come out. The most concrete from higher education is Oakland. Oakland has said they will do, and we're following with this. Our president is an MD as well, one of the few that are in the state. So, but definitely temperature testing, mask. The wording that he is using is a public health informed constituent group of students, spacing them out. We're looking at large lecture halls still being online, so not having any type of, you know, a few hundred students in the same room, and then using, it's really spacing out the classrooms, right? We're not, for example, if we use it in the name of Holly Academy, right, we're not going to put 8 kids around a table, right? We're going to put just a couple. So spacing those out, but definitely the plan is to get kids back on campus for the fall, but at a very distant, and I would assume for us, still not having, like a Holly Academy, still not having like concerts and things where you're packing 400 and 500 people in there.
So for Ken, there'll be extra expenses for extra cleaning. There's extra getting a hold of the masks. So if you have to, we actually have to do thermal testing. Just getting a hold of that equipment is very difficult right now.
Right.
And it takes something, it takes training as well, and such along the way. So there's, it's not insignificant.
Jose and I have already had some preliminary discussions about that for just that reason. You know, it's not going to happen overnight.
So is that something that I can ask to be routed through the building committee up to the board? Can that work?
Sure. Absolutely.
Great idea.
Thank you. Is there anything else?
Is there any action that's needed on this continuity learning plan since it was already approved?
I think the board has to approve it, right, Julie?
Yeah, there's, for the
Yes.
continuity of learning plan,
That's
there's a
next up.
resolution, yes.
Thanks. Good segue.
Well, I was just curious because what if we didn't approve it? CMU has already approved it that way. So is there even a, you know what I mean? It's just for a paper trail?
Mhm.
No, then you wouldn't get your state funding, Dave. So I would recommend that you approve it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Please.
I'll make the motion that we.
Right. So do I need to, this is quite a long, you know, preamble and stuff. Do I need to read this out loud? Okay.
No.
All right. So next up on our agenda is a resolution approving the continuity of learning and COVID-19 response plan, budget amendment related to plan and other agreements referenced in the plan, and approval of charter contract amendment. Dave, you made a motion to approve?
Yeah, I think we're just approving item letter D, right? Not E.
Just one at a time.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Yes,
This
that's what
is
my
D.
motion is for yes, the continuity learning plan, not the charter.
I can second that.
Stephen seconds. Okay, Jen, can you do a roll call for us?
I sure can. Joan Earhart,
Yes, approved.
Diane Wejack,
Yes.
Sarah Barton,
Yes.
Dave Cruikshank,
Yes.
Stephen Jenkins,
Yes.
Doreen DeBenedictis,
Yes.
Dylan Adams.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, so Candy, for the signatures, do I then download the forms, type them in and send them back to the academy? Or can the office handle that?
The office can handle that, yeah. So
Okay.
if you want to just type in, motion, yes, whatever's easiest for you, please.
That's easiest for me.
Okay, please.
Okay, great. So that is D. So next up, E is the resolution of contract amendment. And that's the contract amendment for the curriculum change, implementing big ideas. Are we good with that? Did we need any more discussion on that item?
I mean, Jen had so many negative comments about it, I'm kind of unsure.
Thanks, Dave. I can always count on you.
Why
Make the
does it
motion.
say in the last paragraph about that David is authorized to execute the amendment? That's fine, but I just think it's a weird wording.
When I asked about that, you said because he was on governance that to put his name in there.
Which page are we on? I'm sorry.
It's just the one page. It's at the be it
Front.
further resolved. Jen Pottinger is authorized to propose and or negotiate the contract amendment. Dave Cruikshank is authorized to execute a contract amendment effectuating the purposes set forth in the resolution.
And that would just be because of I'm the chair of the governance committee, I would assume.
That's when I asked about it when I was typing up the resolution.
And
Yeah.
any board member can sign those resolutions. It doesn't matter.
I'm fine with it if the board is
I
fine
think
with it.
Dave is a great one. So I make a motion to approve that.
I'll second that.
Jen, can you give us a voice vote?
Joan Earhart,
Yes, approve.
Diane Wejack,
Yes.
Sarah Barton,
Yes.
Dave Cruikshank,
Yes.
Stephen Jenkins,
Yes.
Doreen DeBenedictis,
Yes.
and Dylan Adams.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so next up we have F. That's resolution to grant emergency powers to the school leader. Dave and I took a look at that. The CMU and Charter Institute had sent two potential versions. One approved, basically gave Julie authority to comply with Executive Order number 35. We recommended the second version. The second version gives additional authority and basically keeps us and Julie in compliance with whatever is the appropriate response for additional executive orders that have already happened that the board may not have responded to, depending on whatever policies would normally require us to convene and vote, and or maybe coming in the future. And the resolution, that authority that Julie is given, essentially ends with the end of the response. So there's no specific date that's given. It's more when the action is no longer needed, it's ended.
Yeah,
And
one
that-
was a much wider net.
It says here that or otherwise rescinded or extended by the board upon a majority vote, correct?
Correct.
Essentially, it's going to end either when the executive order ends or if we need majority to vote.
Correct.
So the second one was what we are officially recommending for approval, and it's much simpler, and we don't necessarily have any issues with administration going off the handle. So that's just simple. Just make it easy and continue on.
Very often anyway.
Yeah.
They might know. You never know.
Right.
Now she's got the power.
Mhm. I make a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll second the motion.
Who was that? Was that Sarah?
Yeah, that's
That
Sarah.
was Sarah.
Okay. Joan Earhart,
Yes, approve.
Diane Wejack,
Yes.
Sarah Barton,
Yes.
Dave Cruikshank,
Yes.
Stephen Jenkins,
Yes.
Doreen DeBenedictis,
Yes.
Dylan Adams.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, so next up we have G, the school calendar. Julie, are you going to grab that? Is that what you're doing?
I'm looking forward in my packet. Does anyone have any questions regarding the calendar? It basically mimics our calendar this year, other than the early start date. I'm trying to find it here. Oh, here it is. The spring break and the winter break pretty much mimic what we had this year. 2 weeks for the winter break and a week plus the Records Day prior to the spring break. And everything else is the same amount of personal development days for the staff. And then the last day of school falls on the 9th of June. So unless there were any questions, I would ask for you to approve it. Well, to approve them both, actually.
I can't find the calendar right now amongst my pile of paperwork, but how close are we to the teacher's last day versus the last day of school?
It's the same as it always is. So the last day of school is always on a Wednesday, and then the teacher's last day is always that Friday. So the
Okay.
9th is the last day for students, the 11th is the last day for teachers.
Okay. Good deal. I'll make the motion to approve the calendar.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Sorry, was that Doreen? Was that you?
Yes.
Okay. Joan Earhart,
Approve.
Diane Wejack,
Yes.
Sarah Barton,
Yes.
Dave Cruikshank,
Yes.
Stephen Jenkins. Do I hear
You're
some-
muted.
Right. Yes. Do that again. It was just
Thanks.
slow on the space bar one.
Doreen De Benedictis,
Yes.
Dylan Adams.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have reports.
Yep. My report is the first one, so I included almost everything in your board packet. I do want to have a shout out to Dylan and welcome him to the board. We're so happy to have you. We haven't had a full board in a while, and we're just really thrilled to have you on board. So welcome. And then to segue from that, Diane and I were having a conversation, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was on our agenda meeting, that we provide our new board members with a packet that has like the yearly budget, the school improvement plan, the strategic plan, and we generally give that to you at dinner with either the full board or a small assembly of the board and some administrators. So we would like to have that sort of gathering. It doesn't look like any restaurants are going to be open anytime soon, but I'm wondering if we did some sort of takeout dinner in our media center, if we could social distance far enough away from each other that we could on board, for lack of a better word, Dylan in a nicer way than just putting a folder in the mail to him. So I'm just throwing it out there.
I'm open to anything like that. It's fine.
I think the restaurants will start opening up before too long here.
Think so?
Yeah, I think it'd be
it's an
great.
interesting thought. I wonder if like I don't know what an opening would look like, but if something outside, you know, if those outdoor spaces might be available sooner than some of the inside spaces. I don't know.
When do you think
Is
you're
at
doing
Seven
this,
Lakes Park.
Julie?
Well, I don't know. It's how, you know, really kind of difficult to get everyone together on a certain night. But if in any way we would be on campus for our next board meeting in May, we could do it after that meeting. Or if that's not going to happen, I guess we just need to look at our calendars.
I think you're right that it would be nicer to do something like that. I love the look on Joan's face when the idea came up. So I think that would be nice, but I think what we have to be careful and be cognizant of are what are the executive orders and what are we able to do as the board that sets the tone to say, you know, can we social distance enough in a same room to welcome? I don't know. Honestly, I think I would highly doubt that we're going to be back in a room together in May. Highly doubt that. And, you know, if we could do something, if Dylan is willing to kind of wait for his welcome to do something in the fall when we're able to actually get together, or maybe even in the summer of an outdoor space or something.
Yeah, I certainly. I'm not. You guys have done an awesome job welcoming me. I feel very welcome. Quite frankly, if you hadn't mentioned anything, I would have never assumed that that was part of the protocol. So it's been really a pleasant experience so far. So obviously, but you know, doing it would be great. I think in the fall, to me would make a ton of sense too. So I would feel no. I don't know what the right word is here, but I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. Or we could just have a happy hour on Zoom. I've done a handful of those already.
Me too.
Yep.
Okay. Well, for right now, I will put all that information in a folder and I'll put it in the mail to you. The things that that you need to know for right now. And I guess we'll just table the thought about a welcome dinner. Is that what I'm hearing from everyone?
I feel like it should be tabled
Okay.
for a little while.
Okay.
Oh.
All right.
Anything else, Julie?
Huh?
Anything else from the director?
No, unless someone has any question about what I put in my report, I have nothing else.
Well, my only question, I don't know where in this agenda to ask it, but what are we looking at for enrollment for next year?
Right now we have 623.
So
Today.
that's a net 7 increase.
Yep.
Okay.
And of those 44 families or whatever that were at the open house, how are we doing with that?
We circled back around. I think the last count from Jen is that we had 6 more families that we need to keep circling around to. And I think that's it.
You mean the others have all enrolled?
Mm-hmm. Some of those, though, were families that came that had, let's say you have a second grader. They came because they had a young 5 or kindergarten, so it was a sibling. So those 44 families were inflated by some that came that were, we already knew that were coming, that we didn't realize.
Oh, I thought they were all new families.
That's what we thought too.
Oh, okay.
Until we started looking at Lisa Crawford kept the list, and then when we looked at who they actually were, yeah.
Okay.
But we have 21 young 5 brand new kids, and 39 brand new kindergartners that aren't siblings.
Plus the, are we holding any back? Do we know?
Mhm.
Okay.
Jen, do you know, do we have about 5? How many? Oh, for sure? Oh, only 2 that are for sure being held back.
Yeah,
I
there's
thought there
only
were more.
2 kindergartners right now. I think there's a possibility of 2 more, but I haven't heard from the other teachers.
Got it. Okay, good.
My turn? You're shaking your head, yes. Okay. First, I wanted to go over the notes that I sent to you, and then that's just sort of a general overview. And then I'll go into a lot more details because obviously with the finances, a whole lot's been happening in the state. So just in my report itself, with the coronavirus issues, daily discussions and updates are being received from Lansing. Of course, that's ongoing. At the board meeting tonight, I will give an updated report, which I will do in about 10 seconds. Most of the current news is centered around conjectures regarding state aid for next year. There is some concern about a reduction for this year. And then after I give you further details, then I'll go over the third quarter financials. There's not a lot to go over with the financials because basically we're doing, up to today, we are doing fine. The two big players that I wanted to give you updates from in the state, one is the Michigan Association of Public School Academies. They really are the number one go-to as far as to get school updates. And then, you know, I frequently refer to MISBO, MSBO, the Michigan Association of Business Officials, and they're the number one go-to for finance. So here's what MAPSA is saying. The state has a budget stabilization fund, which is basically the state's rainy day fund. And this year, for the first time in about 10 years, they may need to go to it because there are a lot of unknown variables. The state is waiting on the April state sales tax revenue numbers because that'll be part of the May consensus revenue estimating conference. That information is not going to come out until mid-May till late May. And then to what extent are we going to get federal funds? Because through the CARES Act, there is money from the feds going to all of the states. It's like $3 trillion, but what Michigan is going to get is $4 billion. And what it's based on is our Title I funding. It's based on every school's Title I funding. And we do get Title I funding, so we will get something from the feds, but they're very tight-lipped as far as how they're going to divvy it up. So we could be getting $500, we could be getting $5,000, maybe more, but it's a total unknown number right now.
And
yes.
Is that CARES fund or the CARES Act just for education, or is it to support the states?
I believe it's to support the state.
So
it's not just for education.
Not just education. So that dollar amount you suggested Michigan might be divvied up for a lot of different needs.
Correct.
Okay.
That's why I'm pretty sure, and we're not a large Title I school. I mean, this year we're going to get about $54,000. A lot of other schools, they're in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And when I say hundreds, I mean, 400, 500,000. We're at 54,000.
So then the governor or some committee in the state legislation would determine what the schools would be getting of that federal funding.
Part of it is going to be determined through and I'm just looking over my notes here. When I talk to you about the consensus revenue estimating conference, that includes the state treasurer, the director of the House Fiscal Agency, the director of the Senate Fiscal Agency, and then of course the governor has her input. So the governor is the major player, but all of these other people are going to be part of that decision.
But isn't that a different source of funding? Isn't that from our state or sales tax?
It's sales tax is part of it. Sales tax is not all of the funding. That's only maybe, if I have to give a round number, the sales tax maybe is about 50% of it. There's I'm sure you sometimes see advertised how the lottery gives money for school funding. So there are other factors besides the sales tax.
No, I was just trying to suggest that the sales tax and what you're saying, I don't know what you called it, that's going to happen in May based on April sales tax revenue.
The revenue estimating conference.
That's just a portion of what the per pupil funding could or could not be, where the CARES Act would provide funding to the states that then the state could determine a portion of that could go to education.
Yeah, they're totally separate.
Okay.
Correct.
Yep.
Kevin, real quick, is the CARES Act money, is that new or in addition to? I mean,
It's new money. The way it's described is it's a one-time appropriation for an emergency relief fund. They did this about 10 years or so ago, and it was called ARRA. Some of you may remember that, maybe Diane, maybe Julie, where we got federal fundings. It was like an economic stimulus package. It's going to be similar to that. So it may come in multiple phases, but it's a one-time appropriation. So just to be clear, let's say our appropriation is $25,000. Well, we might get $5,000 a month for 5 months. Does that make sense?
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah. So should we think about, when we're thinking about, as I'm reading through the financials, the funding and the money that we're normally receiving, this is in addition to completely separate new additional monies, and I'm assuming there's certain stipulations and conditions about what it can be spent on or how it can be spent, and like you said, even how we get it is still unknown. But it's
Correct.
Not like it's a piece of, it's not something we've expected and need or have to come in. It'll be in addition to.
Correct. And part of what I'm hearing is the state is hoping that the amount they get from the feds will keep us at the same level that we're currently receiving, so that they will not have to reduce funding this year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, that's just the next 3 months, correct, Ken? That you're
This year,
referring to?
the money will come in through August for this year.
Okay, all right.
You know,
But next year's funding is where MAPSA is very concerned about the levels.
right.
Okay,
Correct.
okay.
And remember, our fiscal year ends June the 30th. The state's fiscal year ends September 30th. So that's why we keep getting money in July and August. No money comes in September, and then it starts up again in October. What MSBO is saying, and again, that's the Michigan School of Business Officials, they're saying to all of the finance people, just understand that we're navigating uncharted waters, okay, which is pretty true. They want us to be cautious about projecting any type of impact, because from the governor's office, we're not hearing data. You know how a lot of times I will say to you, for next year's budget, the governor's office is saying, like last year, 180 per pupil. The Senate was saying 270 per pupil. They're not giving any data whatsoever. I think they're waiting to see what they get from the feds. But again, that's what I think. What MSBO is saying, and I'm just reading part of what they wrote. It seems unreasonable to think that schools can adjust the 1920 budget, okay, the current year budget, in May with any kind of fidelity. There may be options this year, and the option that they give is the federal money. That may hopefully cushion or negate any impact for the current year. This is a day-by-day analysis. So I wish I had definite numbers to give to you. What MAPSA is saying is maybe there won't be a reduction this year. Maybe think about a $200 per pupil reduction only over the last 3 months. If that's the case, it would be, for us, about $38,000. But what they're saying for next year, they say to the finance people, you know, I can only present one budget, but they're saying to the finance people, when you work with your finance committee, work on 3 different budget scenarios. And here are the 3 different scenarios: a $500 per pupil reduction, a $750 per pupil, and a $1,000 per pupil.
Oh my goodness.
If it's $500 per pupil, we're talking about $310,000. So I give it to you in actual dollar amounts. And then 1.5 times that, 750 would be $465,000. If it turns out to be $1,000, that would be a $620,000 reduction.
Sounds ugly.
Again, please keep in mind, a lot of this is conjecture. They're saying this is what could happen. They want to give us the worst case scenario. They feel that the best case scenario for the current year is that there won't be a reduction, that the federal monies will be enough to cover it. I don't know. If I hear anything tomorrow or the next day, and Candy would know about this, tomorrow actually CMU is having a webinar And basically the topic of the webinar is the uncertainty of the current environment. I mean, we're in a whole new world. This is, I think, Julie, you're also going to be watching that. Okay. So on a day-to-day basis, if I get any information, I'll be contacting everybody about it. For the finance committee, I would like us as soon as possible, like maybe tomorrow I'll send out an email. We need to start discussing this. We need to set up our next meeting. We need to start discussing these issues.
And I'm sorry, who was it that suggested those 3 scenarios?
MAPSA.
MAPSA, okay.
Yeah, Dan, Dan Quisenberry and his team.
Right, yes.
Okay. I can go over the third quarter financials with you if you want me to. Really, right now, we're showing $60,000 of revenues over expenditures. And again, that's with everything that's been happening up to this point. For the financials, we're actually looking fine. And if you have questions on it, you can ask me. I think it's more important to go to the proposed revised budget for this month, because keep in mind, everything is changing every day, but in May, or more likely in June, we still can do the final revised budget, because by June, we should know a lot of this information. We just don't know it as of tonight's conversation. We definitely will know it before the end of June. We have to. And then in June, we'll also give the revised budget for next year, because before July 1st, once again, we have to. So the current revised budget that we worked on is where we're at right now. If you in your packet, so if you go to the packet that says revised budget for the school year, and I'll just go over a few of the line items with you. I don't know if you can see this. This is what I'm asking you to pull out. So it's the April current revised budget showing our changes from the February budget. If you look at revenues, the changes in revenues are basically because of Section 25E money. So the net increase is about $12,000. And if you remember, and Dylan, I can talk to you more about this, maybe in an email, or maybe I'll call you. The Section 25E money is the change in student count from the first student count in October to the second student count in February. And it has to do with coming and going of students either to and from public schools or private schools. Actually, it was to our advantage in the sense of that we were getting an extra $12,000. Just backing up a second, the second line is athletics. I reduced that by $6,000 because a lot of our athletics came in from cross country. Well, of course, we're not doing cross country. Cross country would have been happening right now. So that money's not going to be coming in. With expenditures, so if you're looking at the first page of expenditures, it's a major decrease, and to look at function and object. So you're looking at 111,1240. The reason that's such a huge decrease of $21,000 is our gym teacher was only going to work for about a half a year. She had a baby and she was going to come back in January. And after about 2 or 3 weeks, she decided to go back home with the baby. So we have a long-term sub. Therefore, that's why that $21,000 isn't offset by another teacher coming in. So what you're going to see is her half-year decrease. And then if you go to the third line, substitutes, the substitutes theoretically would be a much bigger decrease than just $7,000. But I have my long-term sub who's going to be in from January all the way through mid-June. So that's why the decrease isn't as big. I still have substitute pay based on making $36,000 a year. No other major changes on this one other than if you go to the next to last bottom line, you'll see the conferences are being decreased by $33.90, but that's really not because of the virus and what's happening. The MDE wanted that changed to a different line item. But again, overall, conferences are going to be reduced because they were canceled. I mean, right earlier this week, I would have been at the annual finance conference for MSBO, and of course that was canceled. So that's going to reduce our expenditures for the year. So if you go to the second page, and the second page starts, with support services, there aren't really a whole lot of changes. We did have psychological services increase before school shut down. That's why you see that being moved from $3,000 to $5,000. If you go to instructional staff and you look at 221-3220, that's where that 3390 was moved to. So I have to show it because it's grant money. So you'll see that there won't be expenditures for it, but correspondingly, there won't be revenues for it either because I won't be requesting money for something that didn't occur. Under 225-1630, you'll see that we, Roy will understand this, we needed Roy more hours than he typically puts in. So there's an increase for that, and that at this point may not even be enough of an increase. If you go down a few more lines, so you're looking at 5110 and 6410, that's just extra technology because we need the extra technology for the virtual learning and for the equipment that we need. If you go to the next page, so it's the page starting at 241. If you go down to 241-5910, you guys just approved the continuity plan with the extra budget in there. That extra budget is the $8,412 that when the administrator sat down, this was what was determined for supplies and for postage for taking care of the continuity plan. We've needed some extra work from our janitors, so that's why you see an increase there. And again, that may go up a little bit. And for the money that's going to be used as the deposit for our bathroom renovations, and I'll talk about that. Well, I was going to talk about it in the building committee, but I can talk about it now. So the finance committee decided to put that in its own line item. So you'll see that's under 261-6410. So that's the amount, if you look at the revised budget, on the far right, that's the amount that's going to be shown this year as the deposit from the Angel donation. I'll say it now, it was going to be part of my budget committee meeting, but last week when I sent out my notes, you'll see if under budget, I said there is no update because everything has been put on hold for construction. Well, over the last few days, that has opened up, and under the governor's most recent relaxing a little bit of the rules, construction can start continuing again. So I've been in touch with Terry Gill, who is our architect, but just be aware, because there was no construction for quite a while, we wanted to have this worked on in the summertime. He said, just be aware, the construction companies are so far behind, he will push for it, but he can't guarantee that that's going to happen because all of this that is occurring, we didn't anticipate, and it's beyond our control. So if you go to the next page of the budget, which is the final page, so if you look over on the far right column, revenues and other financing sources, right now we have revenues over expenditures of $42,000. My thought is, let's say we do get enough federal money so nothing changes with our revenues for this year. If nothing changes, that $42,000 should go up because over the next couple of months, hopefully expenditures should decrease. And the finance committee will be talking about it. We have a lot of different ideas such as the wow factor that we've been referring to, and I can hold the rest of that for the committee meeting reports. And if something does happen, just really quickly, hold on, just one thought. If something does happen with the $200 per pupil decrease, if that does turn out to be $38,000, we already have that covered. I think we're going to be okay for the current year. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, nothing. I was just going to ask just a simple, so the building itself, it's not being heated to the full degree. Are we saving money with lights and heat and that kind of thing?
Absolutely. That's why I say, expenses over the next couple of months will go down. That's one of the bigger ones. Yes, consumers' power will go down. We're keeping the temperature lower. The electric isn't as much. A lot of things that are plugged in are no longer plugged in. Just like even the milk coolers, just to give that as an example. So I mean, they've been cleaned out. The milk was donated. And it's unplugged. We don't need that electricity running. So yes, you're right. That's why I'm confident, again, with...
And the water bill, nobody's flushing the toilets nowhere near as much and that kind of thing too.
Correct. Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you.
Like I say, what we're approving hopefully tonight is where we currently are at right now, updated, and we'll see what happens over the next couple months, but in June, we will do a final revised budget after several meetings with the Finance Committee, and we will present, and however we present it, the original budget for next year. So I think admin and the Finance Committee, we have a lot of work to do, but we'll roll up our sleeves, we'll get it done.
Just for governance, guys, I missed it. This should have actually been a new business. If we're actually adopting a resolution, it should have been a new business instead of being in a report. So we can certainly vote on it, but I want to make sure that I can update that.
I'm not sure what you're saying because the revised budget resolution has always been under the finance report.
But typically when you take actions, it needs to be under a business item. Because the report section of the agendas are simply just for you to give us information. It's a dialogue more than an action, typically.
Okay. So it would in the future it will be where?
It should be under new business because we're making a financial decision and warrants the discussion where you get your own time instead of trying to shove this into a report section.
Gotcha. All right.
It's nothing you did, nothing at all.
No. I'm not taking it that way.
Okay, perfect.
I'm good with that. I think you've done a great job of streamlining the agenda, so I'm fine with doing that.
I'll make the motion that we do adopt the revised budget.
Can I have a real quick question? Sorry, on the 48,000 increase on that for the bathroom. With regards to the construction delays, I can't remember. Is there any issue there with the angel donor? Did the money have to be spent by a certain time?
Yes, because it otherwise it will end up in our fund balance. So what we're doing is we're just writing the check for the deposit, so that 50,000 will be out of the budget, taken care of by the wonderful angel donation, being used in the way that was requested, and hopefully that answers your question.
Yep, it does.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions? Okay, so we had a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second, sure.
Okay, I'm not sure who came in first with that.
Doesn't matter.
I'm going with Diane.
Oh, sure.
Okay, roll
Jen
call.
Hart,
Approve.
Diane Wejack,
Yes.
Sarah Barton,
Yes.
Dave Cruikshank,
Yes.
Stephen Jenkins,
I approve.
Doreen D. Benedictus,
Yes.
Dylan Adams.
Yes.
Great,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
That's the finance portion, and then looking at the agenda underneath that is building and finance committee. Like I said, with the building committee, what I sent out to you was that everything was on hold. I will be in touch with Terry Gill to see how quickly we can move with this. He's done fabulous for us in the past, and I'll keep you guys updated on that. And then of course the building committee will have a meeting about it. For the finance committee report, and then I'll shut up after I go over my notes because, if any of the finance committee members want to chime in, please. With the coronavirus issues, the school information, as already discussed, is changing all the time. We previously discussed this budget that you just approved. Over the next few meetings, we will, over the next couple of months, we will be discussing a final revised budget and then the new budget for next year. And then I really wanted to open up if any of the finance committee people had anything you wanted to add to this or anything else you wanted to say at this point.
No, I think we're good. We've covered pretty much everything we've been discussing.
That's my report. Dylan, welcome to the board. Thank you.
And thank you to the Finance Committee. I mean, we've been talking all along about how much information has been coming in and how much things have been changing and how everyone's been scrambling to kind of keep up and adapt. So I just appreciate everything everyone on the board has been doing to pitch in and cover all the topics and issues. Thanks.
Thank you, Joan.
Okay, so next up is Governance Committee. So while Dave and I didn't officially meet, we did cover a few issues, including having a dry run of the webinar meeting. So thank you to Julie and her team, and thank you so much, Roy, for providing technical assistance in the background and helping us pull this off. And thanks to Dave for putting together that checklist and making sure we're in compliance and covering issues. And thanks to Candy for keeping us on track and bringing up additional items from CMU. So thanks. Marketing?
Ooh, who is marketing? I forgot.
Sarah.
That's me, Dave. How could you forget? I learned the other day that if you hold the space bar, that actually gives you like temporary. And believe it or not, my children taught me that, so it's great. We haven't met in a long time on marketing committee. I'm sure that I can loop back maybe to Julie and see where we're at to kind of talk about Diane's point of recruitment for the fall. Where are we? What do we need to do? What are we allowed to do? How can we capitalize also on the fact that everyone is home right now and that we have their attention? I'm sure that helps with our 200 responses that we get from surveys. I know that's not the same group that we're looking for, but how do we use our existing pack to kind of get that information out to others that may be interested in that? So I'll loop back to you, Julie, see what your thoughts are, get the committee back together, and we'll keep moving on this.
Right.
Maybe even, I know, I guess I should say there's been some really great videos and things that the school has been doing as far as the thank yous. And I know Mrs. Price is, I believe, putting one together just kind of to see the kids when they first go on Zoom and capture those. So any type of video or photograph or information that we can capture, I think would be beneficial to continue using and to show the support of our school to our students and our families. So
Right.
I don't have anything more.
Right. Well, we're having Zoom staff meetings, and the message to the staff, even though they're extremely busy because they literally turned education around on a dime, is that we need to be marketing, marketing, marketing. So something that actually our fabulous Jen Malero she didn't come up with it, but she suggested it, is asking our new Huskies to put yard signs in their yards, as well as our Husky pups, our littles, our current young fives and first graders. So Jen came up with some proofs for yard signs, and then I took a few of them and forwarded them to Lisa Crawford, who is our resident graphic designer, and she came up with some great proofs for yard signs. And then the news came out that we might lose some money this year. So Ken and I had talked about how much they were going to cost, which was $1,500, but we're just going to hold off for a minute to get those made, because I'm really waiting to hear next week what we hear about this federal money that's coming in. So we're hopefully going to do the yard signs. We are still marketing heavily on Facebook and through Parents Connect. And to be perfectly frank, even though we have done those things, we have been working around the clock just trying to change education around. And as we discussed earlier, now we've started to shift our focus to next year. So we will be continuing to talk about marketing.
You might want to capitalize on Holly Academy's response to this situation and the distance learning and just how seamless it's been, and the response from the parent community and the students, and roll that forward as we're ready for either in school or out of school education. It'd be great.
Yeah, and I think
Fine
one of the
idea,
things,
though. I think that one's excellent.
yeah, I love that idea, and I'm even thinking of some funding maybe in the background that we can find a way to get to put that out there. I think would be great, any type of marketing. But I think one of the things too, and Julie, you can chime in if you think otherwise here, is that you know, I think a lot of times we really look at how do we market our hard figures, right? How do we market our test scores? How do we market this? But truly in a time like this, I think it's honestly like the power of the pack is very, very real. And it's more of that, like that heartstring, that feel, the fact that there's parents printing off packets and putting in mailboxes for other parents to pick up. And there's people Zooming to say, hey, how are you? And I mean, it's all kinds of things that, you know, if someone is looking for a community to come to within an educational environment, that is that community that they can come to. So I think it's kind of shown us a different place that we can take the marketing to. So
yeah, kind of that emotional piece rather than the academic number piece.
Right.
Julie, in the distance learning plan, we say that we will daily contact students to check in on the status of their well-being. Was that in the guidelines that we had to do that, or was that our?
No, it just said how. I can't remember the exact question, but you know, how are you going to, you know, reach out to your families to make sure that they're okay, not academically, just emotionally.
Right. But was the requirement to do it daily? Or
No.
No, because I think that's, if we're truly doing that, I think that's like a huge market thing that we could publicize.
Right.
That's awesome.
It's just how to do that. Yes, that's awesome. I just don't know how to do that. So I'd love it if our marketing committee could meet on a Zoom.
I'll get that set up for you, Julie.
Thank you.
Okay. All righty. So are we ready to open up to extended public comment?
We are, but I have an extended public comment that I should have brought forth in my director's report. Is that okay?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
we call that a redo, actually. I don't think we call that extended comment.
Okay. Well, in my written report, it references Jen Malero, but I think I need to say it out loud, that she is a 3-time MAPSA finalist, number 5 finalist, and we're so proud of her. And this week, the administrator videos are on the MAPSA site. Next week, it'll be the teacher videos. So I'm so excited to see Jen's video, and we're going to do some marketing around that as well. And then we find out on May 13th that she is our Teacher of the Year. I'm just saying that because I truly believe that she's going to win this year. Regardless of whether she wins that or not, she's Holly Academy's Teacher of the Year, for sure. So I just wanted to say that out loud.
All right.
Okay.
Are there any comments from the public?
I'd like to just say thank you, board. Thank you, staff. On behalf of CMU, you've done a tremendous job, and I want to remind you that you're making history tonight because this is the first time that the Holly Academy Board has met virtually. So congratulations on that achievement. Thank you. Good to see you all.
Good to see you too.
Thanks, Candy.
If you open up the chat, there is a very long message from Tina Craven that somebody might want to read.
Yeah.
So should I read that?
I've been reading it here. Yeah, it's good, quite good.
Right.
Yeah.
I would just, so this is from Tina Craven, as Roy said. I would just like to publicly say that I am overly impressed with the work every employee of Holly Academy is doing. I see it as a parent and a teacher. from our maintenance committee who emptied lockers and organized the gym for item pickup, our tech department who is helping day and night with tech issues, Chromebooks, etc., to our admin team who is working countless hours to meet with teaching teams, call, write letters to parents, answer emails to the interventionists, parapros, running reading groups with at-risk students, attending Zoom classes, connecting with families of struggling math students, to my teacher colleagues working countless hours, planning engaging lessons, learning new technology and programs, Zoom, textbooks, online, etc. I am so impressed with the collective efforts and great lengths of our staff has went to in order to continue educating our Huskies. There truly is power in the pack. Thank you to the board for all of your support along the way.
Nice.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tina.
Were you paying attention in the meeting, Tina? Kidding.
She prepared that yesterday. All right, no other public comment?
I see it says one new message.
Tina, I was.
Okay, good. All righty. So we have board comments.
This isn't, I don't know when the best time to bring this up. Ken, this is more for you, maybe perhaps in the finance committee. I think it would make sense for me to sit down and get a better idea, certainly in regards to the bond structure. I reached out to our director of government banking, and she's essentially agreed to kind of sit down and meet with us and help us walk through what are some of the things we might need to prepare in terms of, you know, various documents and other things as we kind of look to refinance that. So I'm happy to help spearhead in that kind of effort. And in general, you know, probably would make sense for me to understand probably just more. I think you mentioned you could maybe reach out. We could set up a call. That would be great. And
absolutely.
I'll ask a million questions. That's just what I do. So, but
no, that's good. I'll email you tomorrow just so we look at our calendars and set something up.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The only comment I would like to make is in regards to the calendar. It just got me thinking, the calendar as far as days and things like that I don't have anything major to say about that. But in regards to, you know, we're forced into this world of video conferencing now, right, of Zooming. And are there ways, and I know we've had discussions before, but are there ways to reach parents? I'm specifically talking about parent-teacher conferences days. I know we have a lot of days that we are either half days or we're off to supplement those times. So how can we continue to use this technology that we've been forced to use in a way that when we're not forced to use it, but it would reach more individuals? So I guess I would just ask that we continue to kind of leverage that, and when we that we don't allow ourselves to fall back into what we are thinking is normal from 2019. So
I would add to that and suggest we even look at utilizing some of the distance learning to support students that are ill for a period of time and can't get into the classroom or into school, or even, you know, there was some sensitivity about in the fall, what do we do when a student comes in and they're, you know, they've got a cough or the sniffles or whatever, and maybe there are decisions that we need to make to say, gee, we want you to stay home for the next 5 days or whatever, and check in that perhaps we do have some Zoom lessons for those students and we can loan them Chromebooks or whatever to help them stay up to speed with what's happening in the classroom, even though they can't be in school. So that one may be a great marketing option, but I would add that to the list as well, Sarah, to say, let's capitalize on what we're learning about distance learning to make it even better for Holly Academy.
I was just going to say,
sorry, Joan, go ahead.
No, it was just I just thought it was really telling that with almost 100 Chromebooks going out, that says almost 1 in 6 of the student body doesn't have, you know, didn't have at home a laptop at their disposal. And I can't tell, maybe you have, the school has the data through the survey, how many had maybe one computer, an extra laptop per family, but this learning right plan has increased the need for every student to have a device.
Yeah, one-to-one technology for
Right,
sure.
the one-on-one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna just kind of compound on what Sarah and Doreen had mentioned. Is I'd said it in the last meeting, 2 meetings ago, that when we were at that training for CMU, I'd found out that there was a school there that splits their learning half online and half, in the classroom at the same time, and that's a forum. So now that this has all happened, I think that there's even a different need, because I feel there's going to be plenty of parents that will pull and do homeschooling after all of this is done. So is there an opportunity, because we're testing it now and we know how online schooling is working, is there a way to work that into a change where we are a half online or a part online and all of that together? Since we have the technology now, we know it works, we've done it, and we've lived through that testing period, that there is an option that there is some change. And that will allow us, I don't know how the funding works, and Candy, I'm actually going to reach out to you about that to see how it works with online schooling and students. Is there a full funding, or is it a portion, and go from there and see what opportunities are.
I think that's a great option to look at.
I mentioned that to Julie on another call, and she feels pretty strongly that this won't move families to homeschooling, which I was surprised to hear.
Well, our kids, so I email some kids every day. I think out of the hundreds that I've emailed, the kids don't like it. They want to be with their friends. They want to be in school. They do not like it. And that's from a kid perspective. I haven't asked the question to parents. We kind of are through this survey, but overwhelmingly, our children do not like it. So that's the data I have. Now, maybe, parents will think, oh my gosh, we tried it and, this online schooling is for me, but a virtual learning model is not really what we're doing. We're doing kind of like a blended online distance learning model. So I'm not saying that we can't capitalize on what we're doing. I'm not saying that at all. I completely agree with what you're all saying, but I don't know. I think the way we're going to lose students is if we do open up in the fall, and let's say a third of a class comes every day and we distance the kids, and then so they come on Monday, Wednesday, every other Friday. I think parents who are worried about health and safety won't send their kids, and that's how we'll lose students. And then we would have to then maybe be able to capture those students in a virtual way.
I agree 100% with what Julie just said. I think you may have some people who may have been thinking about homeschooling that actually may change their mind during this period. But you'll have the people, as you will in every normal distribution, you'll have people who will be more nervous than others. They may have had a close experience, with a family or a friend who has passed or had a, near-death experience with it. And again, we're experiencing this in industry, people who are more nervous than others to come back and be close to others. So I think having this is kind of also links into my previous comments, starting to talk about and think about what our plan is. Because I think you can kind of write it, whatever, whatever's going to come from the governor. I think we can kind of write it. Some will happen, some won't, and some will happen longer than others. But I think we can start putting plans in place even as we speak. But certainly, Candy, any help from central resources would save the individual schools from having to invent the wheel.
So when I think about my own like how it looked for me with two parents working and kids in school, having a model where I drop kids off on alternate days of the week would be a real challenge to figure out what to do with them on the other
Right.
days.
Mhm.
Right?
This
And
is going to be the
so,
world that we're going to be in, though. It's not going to be just us, right? It's going to be so, to speak to Steve's point too, I mean, industry, everybody that works, I mean, this is if you followed anything that's going on in New York, right? Like they have their 3 cogs. In order for them to function, they all have to function. And that is going to be one. Either all schools will be back, or all schools will be back partially, or no schools will be back, because and if no schools are back or they're back partially, it affects the workforce because there's so many that have dual incomes. I mean, it's those things I think are outside of what we control. But if we can control some of okay, maybe schools are going to be back, but this is going to be the protocol in order to enter the building. This is what we're going to be doing for testing, to make sure that not just students, but staff are safe, right? That they're tested, and what is that, and what is the entry path, and are there bathrooms that are restricted to certain age levels and grades, and all of that, and spread the desk out, and not so much stuff to touch. And I mean, it's just but it's a whole different world that we're going to come into. I mean, it's a whole different world.
Well, just even think of this summer with, we're going to experience it in industry with people who are dual income, and the whole camp system is in turmoil right now, right? You know, so it's going to be difficult, you know, just getting kids to camps that may or may not be able to open, or if they do, they're going to have a completely different plan or stuff like that. So we're going to have people who can't come back to work, and they can't bring their relatives in, and they can't, you know what I mean, all that stuff. So again, back to, we can control certain things, and I think your point is completely valid. We should put plans in place there that of the things that we can control, or the options that we have along the way as we prepare for that August time period. And even as the kids come back, we're going to need to have a package of how do we bring them back, and how do we educate them on whatever the new normal is, as we will call it then.
Right on. Not to be doom and gloom too much, I guess, but for those of you who maybe were here during the last recession, is there a big impact on the school system if the country goes through a major recession? Is that something that dramatically changes the way we operate and how we do things, or is it less impactful here than it might be otherwise?
Well, in the 2008 recession, it impacted us a few ways. People in Southeast Michigan moved to other locations because of industry. And then for the educational impact was huge because, oh dear, my battery's running low. The educational impact was huge because people stopped having babies. So, you know, 5 years later, we really felt it in our enrollment numbers.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, just from our perspective in the finance industry, we're pretty much expecting there to be a pretty severe recession to follow. We don't know the term, is it how much of a V curve is it? Meaning, if it gets bad, does it get better right away? Or I think the latest assumptions, and everyone's pretty pessimistic, the vibe I'm getting is that it's not going to be a quick return to normalcy. So I think the health priorities are obviously number one, and how we operate there, but I just kind of wanted to bring that up as if we do see 20, 30% unemployment for a short period of time, and then have to slowly get back to normal. Just kind of wanted to bring that up as something else to consider on top of a 1 in 100 year viral pandemic.
Can I end this kind of like on a little positive, because I'm feeling really down right now? I just want to do a shout out on some of the teachers. We've had teachers go visit students for their birthdays. They stood out at the end of the driveway, had signs, "Happy Birthday, Johnny," and did a lot of good things. There's a student that's been crying ever since he's left school. He doesn't understand why. And one of our teachers went there and just stood out there and they talked and said, you know, things will be okay. We had a child move to Utah, and one of the teachers went over on the day that that child left and, you know, had a sign and said, you're going to do good, you know, enjoy the new state. So I just wanted to end, like, there are so many things our teachers are doing that, I mean, you cry each day, you know, and, you know, they're reaching out to our kids. You know, we did have, you know, I don't know if I can disclose, but I'm not saying any names, but we did have a child lose their father to this COVID-19. And, you know, we've reached out and this parent is just so thankful, you know, like we're just helping. So I just want you to know, like, there's so much that our staff is doing that is just incredible. You know, I wish we could be on ABC 12 News, you know, like they show all these good things. And I'm like, but we did that, we did this, you know, so there's really some good things going on by all of our staff. Julie and Jen say it every day because they write to the staff, you know, we're so proud. I'm so.
The glass half full is really important to be focused on. And I think in the marketing committee, you know, we talked about some of the things that we can pull out. I think we've got opportunity. We see it at home, you know, we're just getting close to our daughter's education. Every day with my kids that are away, you know, being able to do the FaceTimes and stuff like that. And this is a school, you see how the power of the pack or the one team philosophy really comes out in that. And those are the things that everybody needs to be chatting about along the way, you know, even having their finances where they are. And we're in a good spot, you know, in a lot of ways. So it's pretty positive. Thanks,
We
Jen.
do have another attendee chat, if Joan wants to read it.
Joan, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. So this is from Casey Moore to all panelists. I'm going to go ahead and read it out. She's got a couple of main points. And she says, first, this would be so much easier to say in person. And maybe a parent-focused meeting would be in order via Zoom. While I appreciate all of the teachers and support staff and administration, for every good thing that has happened, there has been one snafu, and this has all been so difficult for everyone involved. But I'm going to steal Julie's words and say that the parent survey results coming at next month's meeting will be more of an autopsy rather than help. There are issues going on that need to be fixed before June 2nd when this all ends. So I'm hoping that Casey will feel comfortable reaching out directly to the front office, to you, Julie, or to others, or to Lisa Crawford, or, you know, all of the above. So, you know, that she's aware of what approaches are being taken to address, you know, different issues that are coming up. So.
Right. The
Jen, your hands
idea
up.
of a parent focus group Zoom meeting has been brought forward to me as well. So I think that that's something that I need to get on the books sooner rather than later as well.
It's a good idea.
Jen?
And even though I'm bringing the results of that survey to you all next week, I mean next month, it's a living document for me. So as tweaks need to happen, you know, those will be done in real time. They won't be post the next board meeting, right? As we can respond to parents' needs individually, and as we're finding that balance, I just wanted to assure her that we won't be doing that in June. We'll be doing that ASAP.
Well, I assume we'll be bringing the results, obviously, in the comments back to the board, but perhaps in some kind of maybe sanitized format a little bit, we'll be getting back to also the whole parent population too.
Yes, yes.
So something that I had wanted to have as part of the agenda from this point on, I think, is an update on succession planning. We had just a brief discussion about that at our last in-person meeting, and I had asked all the board members to bring a couple key items for discussion. Now, I also want to acknowledge that we're at 8 o'clock. So, or just about. So I just would like to hear, I guess, from the board members, whether we're prepared to launch into further discussion about that right now, or if we'd like to hold that for next month.
The board, it's kind of a normal night here for me.
I'm fine to continue on.
Okay. So as we know, Julie has, because Julie has let us know, she is planning to retire in the next year or two. And so she says two. So we need to prepare. And one of the things we need to do is put together a search committee, but also, thinking of it to think about what we would like to see in our school community going forward. And just to acknowledge the discussion that we've been having, it's a challenging time to feel like we may know what the future looks like to be able to put these plans together, but as best as we can, I think it's important to get that conversation started.
I guess one thought to throw out is, whenever you have someone who's been in tenure for a period of time, you kind of want to think about, when you bring in somebody else, what are those things or skills or otherwise that you'd like to bring in that are different? What are those skills that you'd like to bring in that are the same? The things you don't want to lose. But there's also, I often think about it in the terms of a change agent versus a continuous improvement person, versus somebody who is, I'll say, development of people, teachers, or development of processes. You usually kind of get these things in different strengths or such along the way. So, Julie's been in place for a period of time. What are those complementary skills that you want to bring in? Things that Julie might bring up and say, hey, here's the places that, maybe I haven't spent as much time on or had as much, forte in. And here are the things that I'd like to get to and haven't got the time for. I think about when you replace someone in a position, those are the things I think about whenever I'm bringing in a new manager or director underneath me.
Thanks.
Steve, the document that Candy sent out has some, I was kind of looking through it and had some good, just kind of in line with what you're saying right now about kind of what are the more, I'm gonna say not even soft skills, but more conceptual, philosophical kind of questions to ask as we go through this. I thought that was pretty, I don't know if everyone had a chance to look at that, but it's kind of, that was, I thought, a pretty interesting way to look at the overall task at hand. It's in line with everything you just said.
Point being, you're never going to have someone who has, everything that you would ever want, right? For a position. So what would you tip it towards? And some of those things that in Candy's document are great ones to start thinking about. Where do we think we want to go, and what are the things that would help us get there quicker, stronger, faster, kind of thing.
In regards to that too, as far as, the quicker, stronger, faster, I think we also need to make sure that we give ourselves enough time. One of the things that happens often, I believe, in our board meetings is that time goes by fast, and then the time goes by even faster for the months. So what is the timing that we want to bring this person in to make sure that there's a bit of a time frame of a brain dump, if you will, right? To make sure that that institutional knowledge isn't lost or left. Not that she'll, run off to Wales and never answer a call, but to make sure that there's a rhyme or reason in the history piece of that, so that the timing, I would say, is important as well.
Right. I think it's really important to think about how we want to do that transition, and if we want an overlap of people, or if, how that's going to work, because that really will drive our plan.
We discussed before if we were setting up a specific committee for this. I'm drawing a bit of a blank. I thought we did. but I could be wrong.
From what I remember, we talked about setting up a committee, and along the lines of determining what would be the makeup of the committee. We talked about, what would be the, some of those key factors or items for consideration.
We
I
had
think
talked
along the
about,
lines of,
yeah, having a committee, but wanting to launch them, if you will, properly with here's the parameters of what we would prefer as a board for that committee, the direction it take, if you will, or the parameters, or here's what success looks like, if you will.
So we're looking for the board's input on not how to execute, but the plan, and then have the committee execute. Is that what we're saying?
I would guess that there'd be at least a minimum of 1 or 2 board members on such committee, and it'd be like a constant update of what we discussed each month, and then feedback from the board to the committee. Because it seems like I wouldn't mind being on it, but I feel like I'm in a disadvantage of information because I want to know, like what Steve had mentioned, that we need feedback from all over the teachers. Do they feel like is there somewhere where they're not supported the right way that maybe we should think about that as well? And so there's a lot of feedback that needs to be gathered before any like an official decision or, a template of what we would want.
Well, that could be part of how we launch the committee. We say to the committee, okay, go gather this, and then bring it back, on a regular time basis of here's what we've gathered, and here's, where we think we should go with that data as such
Right.
along the way. But it really does need to start with strategically, in a larger sense, we as a board are supposed to set I'll say, where do we want to be? What do we want to be when we grow up? What do we want to be in 5 years? Where do we want to go?
Right.
And then therefore we think these kinds of things will help us in that. I think it requires really Julie's input of, hey, here's all the things I wish I could have done, or here's all the things I think are in a great spot. Here's all the things that are, places I can't take it, but someone else might be able to. I think, those are things that the committee, as they have empathy interviews with Julie along the way, would be extremely helpful, I think, as we form where this committee would go.
I think we have a committee chair. That's you, Steve.
I second that.
I am the wrong guy for HR. I'm the guy that shuts plants down.
I don't know. You seem to be very articulate when it comes to thinking this through.
Good at dancing.
I'm not sure where the first bite of the elephant has to come out of, and that's I think the tough part.
What do you mean?
Well, I really think, honestly, it's a timing. We need to look at, first of all, we need to have a conversation, that 2-year mark. So Julie held her peace sign up, right? Say, okay, that's 2 years, and we need to work backwards. It needs to be, in my mind, it needs to be a time frame first of saying, this is ideally when we would like someone to start. This is ideally when we need to search for that person. In the teachers and administrators world, there's a significant time period. There's an identified time period for recruitment. You're not going to be recruiting for an administrator in January. You're not looking for that person. Then you're not going to find the ideal person that you're looking for. So I think you have to look at a timeline first, and then you have enough time and to fill in what you're looking for from Stephen's perspective of, empathy interviews and kind of looking at where it's going to go. And then I personally think we need to take a hard look at what we paid the consultant to do and what are we doing with that information. Did we hire this consultant to say, come in and do these things, and create this vision plan, say we did it, actually going to follow it. Because if we're going to follow it, then we need to follow it, or we need to adjust it based on the pandemic that we're in and then move forward. But I think we have some basic information that we can use, tighten that up, because we need to have a vision as a board of where this is going. And if we don't, it's going to be really hard to hire an administrator to follow that vision.
So is the first step setting up that timeline and having a discussion that way? Like, would that be a new business item for next month to at least get that started as established, and then we can start backing in after it's done?
And I guess I would even, I don't have a ton of time. That's why I'm not like saying I can be participating in this committee. Honestly, I just don't. But to me, it also stems, Dave, kind of from the work that we're planning to do with what are the goals of this evaluation? What are the outcomes? Because that should also go into what are the goals and the outcomes for the new person. Not that that's going to define that, but that rolls into that process. And then to backstep of, run that supply chain backwards of when you want that person and all the things that need to go into it. And then what needs to be done. I think if there can be a committee that puts together that and brings that proposal to the board, then we have something to talk about and discuss.
Are you adding it into our additional meeting?
Everyone else is way too quiet.
Well, I was thinking, so for the ad hoc director's evaluation, we can certainly address that piece of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
I think we can present a high level timeline, and then in there we can come with a 10,000 foot view of saying, okay, fall of, in, whatever year we may,
yes,
set up that, and then bring it back for a preliminary and have discussions based on that. That's fine. I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, and then
I'm happy to
even
volunteer to. Oh, go ahead, Jen. Sorry.
No, I was going to say maybe even pick Stephen's brain too to make sure kind of that we're adding in some of those interviews, those strategic plans, those other things that need to happen in the time frame, because a lot of this is going to have to happen outside of the academic year. I mean, when the academic, I can only speak from a higher education standpoint, but when the academic year is moving, we are moving. That's it. We are just executing the plan that we created in the summer, and we are moving and dealing with issues that come up. So a lot of this we're going to have to do in the summers to make sure that we have the time to capture it and can find the people that we're looking for.
Well, we're also going to have the strategic plan review coming up. And I think with the COVID-19 response continuing, fall's going to look, as we've said, it's going to look different. And so I think our strategic plan is going to need to reflect that. And so I think we're going to be looking at that and talking about it in a different way, potentially, than we have the last couple of years. I mean, I think the big pieces are the same, but, we need to make sure that we cover some angles that we just haven't needed to consider before.
Sure, it should feed back into the strategic plan. I think a lot of it will be operational at the beginning, but then we'll have to decide going forward, does it change some of our strategy along the way? Like I say, more ability to do remote learning, because we lose some of our population in certain ways or something like that. Happy to be on the committee. I really am. I'm not of the academic world, and I know enough to know what I don't know of that world. Just even what Sarah just said of the certain timeline, where to go and things like that. I think we do need to have that knowledge in there. Julie's going to be critical, I think, to this along the way. And having some knowledge of that world will be, I think, pretty useful. So Dylan and I can be useful, but I think we're coming from different planets in some of this along the way. So we need someone to kind of hold our hand a little bit as far as where to go, or else we're going to take you in a spot I don't think you want to go. It can be useful, but
right. We're going to shut down the plant.
yeah, and then
Not
we got
tell
the
HR.
bean. We got the bean counter there, right by me, right? You know, this is what we
Yeah.
really.
Excited for that shutdown.
The operational guy in the bean
No.
counter running where we're going to have our next educational leader. I don't know about that, but no, as a really wise decision here.
Yeah. I'm happy to, like Steve said, I'm happy to be part of that. I think I'm the new person, so I haven't been signed up to any committee yet, to my knowledge.
Don't speak that too
So
loudly.
I know. Yeah. Happy to
Well,
help.
Sarah, it sounds like we picked up 2 people.
Yeah,
We
but not at the same
need a
time.
Sarah or something along the way, though. Keep us in line.
Right.
I can help and I can share my knowledge and stuff like that, but I can't, time-wise, I can't drive it. But I think, I don't know as anybody can, but I think if we can all work together, then we can figure it out. So maybe Joan, David, and I will talk about it, get some input from others on the board, and try to get some type of starting discussion point to get to the board before the next board meeting of what that plan.
Have the big brains there get together and figure out a plan, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys can tell us what we missed. How to put it together.
You're awfully quiet, Julie. What do you think?
I'm good with whatever you need me to do. There is an outline in the current strategic plan that is a backward design of what we should do when. So take a look at that as well as you're starting to plan.
Perfect.
And to be honest, I know that Candy did send a document to us. I have not had the time to read it yet, so I will take a look at that.
Yeah, and thank you.
Yep.
All right. Anything else, you guys?
Good meeting,
Nothing
Joan.
here.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all too. It's been really nice to see everybody. I hope everybody's doing okay. I know that it can be challenging on multiple levels every day. Okay, so board comments adjournment. We need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second?
Well,
Second.
Everybody seconded. Okay, so let's have a voice vote to approve adjournment.
Stephen, I'll give you credit for that one.
Oh, thank you, Jen.
Joan Earhart,
Yes.
Diane
let's adjourn.
Wejack,
Yes.
Sarah Barton,
Yes.
Dave Cruikshank,
Yes.
Stephen Jenkins,
Yes.
Doreen DeBenedictis,
Yes.
and Dylan Adams.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, Roy. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night,
We'll
everyone.
see you. Be in
Night.
touch.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.